Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is Tuesday, January 6, 2015. Happy New Year. It's 7 o'clock. This is the Cohasset Board of Selectmen meeting in the Selectmen's office at Cohasset Town Hall. We have a lot to do tonight. We're hitting the ground running this year. Going forward, the first order of business tonight will be the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just turned around and noticed. From you?
Yes.
Thank you.
That was actually a gift. It's a gift from my brother.
Yeah, we have some new artwork.
That's wonderful.
It's the Declaration of Independence,
the
preamble of the
Constitution, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and Lincoln's Gettysburg Address.
Yeah, very inspirational.
Inspiration.
We tried to frame the town bylaws, but
Yeah, it was still gonna cost too much.
take care of
There's
the
a
whole
book
thing.
right up there.
That's right.
Didn't fit
Tonight,
my office.
Tonight we're also joined by Town Council Paul Durensis, who's in the audience hiding, but hello, he's here. Is there any public comment on matters that are not on the agenda this evening? Okay. Selectmen comment. Kevin.
Just want to highlight, for sort of a save the date and important event, the Safe Harbor Cohasset Coalition on February 4th is going to present a parents' educational forum on substance abuse. And, the heroin epidemic and the substance abuse is going on in our communities, surrounding communities, and throughout the United States has become a major national problem. So they've put together an excellent forum. It's on February 4th. It's between 7 and 9 o'clock at Cohasset High School Auditorium. They're going to feature Dr. John Kelly, who will talk about the effects of substance abuse in the developing brain. There'll be another presentation on Straight Talk Substance Abuse Statistics in Norfolk County. Another presentation on support resources for parents and children. Fourth presentation on the road to recovery from addiction, from a father-daughter point of view, and as well there's going to be private Narcan training. So I would encourage everybody in the community, whether you're kids in high school or not, this is a serious epidemic, to attend the forum. I think you'll find it very on February 4th again at Cohasset High School, and the Safe Harbor group is also going to be holding other forums and events too in the future. So I commend them for it. I want to give them a little exposure for it, and thank you.
Thanks. Steve?
No, I'll pass it.
Karen?
I just wanted to say that over the holidays, we lost too many people in Cohasset. And I only knew two of them, Gordon Flint, who was the town treasurer, tax collector and town treasurer for 37 years, and Bob Fig, who was one of our lobstermen. Both of them were townies. Both of them loved this town very, very much. Is it Jackie Rhodes?
The police.
The policeman
was Jackie Rhodes.
Jackie
He also
Rhodes
died.
Was a long time and very well liked police officer here in Martha. He knew some of the other people, so.
Yes, well, I do know some of the other people. I just heard Marilyn King, who is a longtime resident here and very active in many different things, and she died. And also Doris Flint, a long-time resident, she died here. And some other people. Billy Nelson, yes, he's out of town, but he also died, which is too bad. And lots of people are ill. It seems to be a bad time, but we have flu around and you never know. Yeah. I have some comments. We had a letter recently, last few weeks, on asking for a bench on a town property restoration. And I think and there are lots of memorials and benches around. I think it would be in the future for the board to have a policy on memorials, because all over the country, people are giving memorials, and it's a nice thing to do, but we should be able to have it equal and everybody to know what the rules are.
Thanks, Martha. That topic has been on my rolling agenda list
Yeah.
and it just hasn't
Okay.
risen to priority, but absolutely, we'll do that this spring.
Yeah,
That's
and I heard something today, which the community center stove has died. And that's useful for the senior center, for other events that they have. Now, stove is really expensive, and, I would think somebody in the community would wanna give it, or, it is a private entity, so town doesn't usually do it, but we do use it for the senior center, and I think there should be something to help. And then a third thing, and I've talked to Chris about this, and he's planning to have a survey on road conditions, and, both, accepted and unaccepted. And I thought, I have no idea if it's possible, a lot of the unaccepted roads plus the accepted are bus routes. And I'm wondering if there's any federal money for roads to maintain that a bus goes on for safety. I have no idea, but maybe the Department of Education, the federal, maybe that's something that one could investigate, since we really have, our roads are being undermined by water, and a lot of them, the ones that were done when the sewerage was done in the central, I don't think the base was that good. I looked at it, and I had my father come down and look at it, who knew something about it. And they're breaking up, and that's only 20 years, and you expect roads to last 40 years or more.
I know there's
And I think some other ways, you were very creative, Chris, in getting pothole money. And, maybe, some of these things with roads, and, other things in the road department, you might be able to do that too. Yeah.
I didn't, are you finished, Martha?
Yes, I am, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to add to that, I mean, everybody has noticed that, just about every street in town is having problems, and a lot of it is due to the road openings and closings, whether they were
That's
our water and sewer or, public utilities. And as long as we're looking at what policies are, I think it might be an idea for the board to review, what our policy is on that, for road openings and closings, and what we require, how we require the roads to be restored.
We actually have one,
I know, but
but executing it
there's a whole other issue.
Yeah.
So we'll review that, we can bring that up too.
Yeah.
In the future, just have a discussion
Well,
about what,
that's fine, 'cause
what do we.
I don't wanna leave that hanging out there, because, there have been some extensive conversations with DPW, and the largest issue, and the largest, opener, which has been a problem, which is National Grid. And I've taken part in some of those conversations to help enhance how important it is to the town, and they've been a lot more receptive. They have had a history of not being particularly receptive or responsive, but they've been far better. Doesn't mean they're perfect, but it's something that Brian Joyce and the Public Works team have been paying a lot of attention to, so, and particularly since that they're looking to do a very major, gas line, replacement.
That's right,
And,
Village.
yeah, so that's something that's being discussed, actually, I think later this week.
While we're talking about roads, just as something to put on a topic to update us on at some point, not necessarily tonight, is the stretch of Jerusalem Road, between one end of Bow Street and the other end of Bow Street. I know that that's supposed to be queued up for work this, spring, I think, and when we originally talked about it maybe a year ago, one of the things we said we would do is inform the neighbors as soon as we had some date certains about what that would entail, and so probably in the next month or so would be good if we could get an update on that.
Diane?
Yes.
I recall several months ago that Chris, in our packet were different, from Situate and, Hingham, different road usage that you gave to us. So we have that in one of our old packets that probably, I can dig it out, cause I keep track of it
So
myself.
roads it is, we'll get it, we'll
Yeah.
have a lengthy
Okay.
discussion. Steve,
Thank
did you
you.
wanna add something?
I did, I just, I had passed earlier, but I couldn't let the opportunity go by without recognizing the retirement of Patrick Kenny, an officer within the Cohasset Cohasset Police Department,
Okay, I didn't
who
know that.
was broadly admired and respected and most of all liked. And I say that because it's not all that common, but in a small town like ours, it goes a long way to have all three of those in your corner. Probably the most interesting comment that I saw posted on it was, Pat, you were gonna give me a ticket one day for parking a handicap spot. And then you noticed my 80-year-old mother trying to get out of the back seat, and you immediately went and helped her walk over the snowbank to the sidewalk. And I thought, you know what? Yeah, you are gonna miss a guy like that. So, Officer Kenny, thank you very much. I can't imagine that you're tuning in on a Tuesday night, but if you're that bored and you like us that much, we like you too.
We do indeed. Thank you. Okay. Anything else? We started, with public comment at 7 and no one had any. Has anybody come in that wants to speak to something not on the agenda? Okay. Then we will move on. The first, thing we have on the agenda, is a update from the town manager on the police chief search and an introduction of Steve Unsworth from Badge Quest. So Steve, you wanna come up here, and then Chris, you can,
Okay.
cue the conversation up?
Thank you. So when we discussed this last fall, I said we would, I had started the process to bring on a firm to assist with the process, and after review, after getting proposals and vetting them, the result is Badge Quest and Steve Unsworth, who we'll be introducing momentarily. I'm pleased that this formal process is underway to get us to a permanent chief of police. Badge Quest has extensive experience in the field. They're currently serving in Weston. I'm sure that Steve could have described a lot of other places they've worked in. And he was the former chief, the retired chief in Waltham for many years. So he has an extensive police background, much less a police search background. He's going to be working alongside me through the process. I'm not farming this out. We're working alongside each other. We've already had a couple of meetings. Actually, we met at Cohasset has a pizza today, as a matter of fact. And he's already begun meeting with staff to get information to move us forward. We've worked up an ad, which is actually ready for release. It'll go out this week. And you know, we're moving the process along. So it's been a good conversation. So this is an opportunity for him to describe his role in the process a little bit more, for you to ask some questions, and for us to discuss how it's going to proceed a little bit over the next couple of months. So without any further ado, Steve Unsworth.
Good evening. Kind of a segue from a very superior, for a senior officer, a very senior officer. I actually have 32 years as a police officer, the last 11 years as chief in Waltham. Prior to that, I actually had 3 years in the military as a military police officer. I retired from Waltham in the year 2000. Just very quick, my own background, again, 11 years as chief. I answered the radio, I drove an ambulance, I walked a beat, I was a canine officer, was accreditation manager, police academy instructor. Thoroughly enjoyed every single step of my career, and each offered its unique challenges. Some things I'm quite proud of. Waltham was the 263rd department in the nation to be nationally accredited. We were the 6th in the state. We were the first in the state to be accredited under the state process. I was actually chair of the accreditation commission in Massachusetts, something that I think has really helped develop and improve a lot of departments, and I'm quite pleased to understand that Cohasset is in the process. It's a very valuable, it's a foundation for a department, and provides guidance for officers to make some of the critical, important decisions that they have to make. I have a master's degree in criminal justice. I'm a graduate of the FBI Academy. Hated school as a young kid, but once I found something I loved, everything
It's a lot easier.
related to something that was valuable to me. In 2000, when I retired, I had no specific plans as to what I was going to do, but about 6 months after I retired, the Mass Chiefs of Police reached out to me and asked me to assist the town of Sterling in selecting a police chief. They needed some help. And I did it and walked away, said, boy, that was good. I think I helped the department and the profession, and that was really the beginning of Badge Quest. Since then, we've done, I think, 45 police chief searches. And we've done promotions of virtually all ranks, assessment centers particularly, and I'll explain what an assessment center is for those of you that aren't familiar with it. But we're doing assessment centers and written exams and promotion process and management studies for departments, and again, virtually promotion processes for all ranks. This will be my last police chief search, although I'm still very actively involved in Badge Quest. I've recently sold a business. I'm 70 years old and going to spend a little bit more time fishing and out of doors and enjoying life after cop. It's been 40-something years involved in the profession. I'd like to explain briefly and certainly answer any questions that you have regarding what Mr. Senior and I have put together as a process. The first thing I need to do is to learn as much as I can about the needs of the police department. To that extent, we'll be doing a job analysis. I'd hoped to meet with the chief today, but he got called out on a matter. But we've spoken on the phone several times, and I will certainly meet with him. There will be kind of a dual role I have with the chief, and I've done this numerous times before. I certainly assume that the chief will be a candidate. So to one extent, I have to keep him at arm's length, but on the other side, I need his input regarding crime issues and things of that nature. And he's professional and I am, and we'll be able to handle that with no difficulties whatsoever. So I'll be meeting with the chief. I want to review policies and procedures, crime stats, and things of that nature. I'll have numerous meetings with Mr. Senior. We've already had some discussions about his perceptions about the needs of the department. We will be doing a citizen survey that I believe is going in the local paper, so that citizens can voice their opinions as to the needs of the department as they relate to the community. Before I leave, I'll give each of you a card, a business card, and I would welcome the opportunity to speak to each of you individually regarding your thoughts pertaining to the needs of the department to the extent you feel comfortable. I would welcome that, and you'll be given as much time as you want. I find that to be quite valuable. I gather all that information, and there'll also be, I've met with Sergeant Lopes today, who's president of the union, and I've given him a questionnaire that he will be distributing to members of the police department that they can submit to me in total confidentiality. I promise him that I'm the only person on earth that sees them, although there's no place for signature. We're asking what they perceive to be the role of the police chief in the community, what management style they'd like the chief to have, what they perceive to be their role in the community, whether they feel training is adequate, equipment is adequate, what are the strengths of the department, what are the weaknesses of the department, what new programs they'd like to have implemented, if any, and their place for their comments. Those will be distributed to all members of the department, returned to me. I will review them, and in general terms, I'll report my thoughts to Mr. Senior. If we ask these questions of officers worldwide, they're going to complain about some of the same things. I kind of put those aside. I'm looking for things that are unique to the needs of this department, so it helps us develop a mental picture of the qualities needed in your next permanent police chief. We have developed the ad, which will be posted this week on approximately 9 sites. It will go nationwide. These days, advertising can be quite inexpensive because of websites, so it'll go in the International Chiefs of Police, the Police Executive Research Forum. It'll go in the New England Chiefs of Police. I'm going to forget some, but New Hampshire, Connecticut, Massachusetts Chiefs of Police Association, the Beacon, which is the website, the MMA, FBI LEADER and FBI NA. Those are affiliate groups of the FBI, but are municipal officers. So we'll get responses from all over the country, but the focus primarily will be Massachusetts and New England. That's what we're finding. I anticipate that we'll get between 50 and 70 responses. In the ad, we've established minimum standards, and those will be, once those are out, we have to rigidly adhere to those. We cannot make any compromises and accept a candidate with lower standards. That brings questions to the integrity of the process. So the minimum standards would be 15 years police experience, 10 years supervisory experience, minimum rank of lieutenant, minimum education of a bachelor's degree, and the candidate would have to be certified by the Massachusetts Criminal Justice Training Commission to assume that they have appropriate entry-level, frankly, police academy experience to be certified as a police officer in Massachusetts, if in any chance it's an out-of-state candidate. So the first step in the review of the resumes will be to eliminate those that don't meet the requirements, and then we will examine them closely, Mr. Senior and myself, to determine if they appear to be a good fit. I anticipate that typically that first cut reduces the pool down to somewhere around 15 candidates. And these are just ballpark numbers. We certainly don't want to eliminate anyone who appears to be a good candidate, so we can be somewhat liberal on that first round of cuts. From that point on, so we'll have their resume and their cover letter. Then we will, let's assume it's 15, we'll send those candidates a series of written questions that we will design. 5 or 6 questions. What are your greatest contributions to the profession? What are your strengths and weaknesses? What are your 3 greatest accomplishments? What's your budget experience? We have a myriad of questions, and we'll work on those, and those will be sent to the, let's just say, these 15 candidates, as well as an extensive application that requires college transcripts, entire work history, and frankly is somewhat of a nuisance to fill out, to the extent that between the homework, the written questions, and the application, we find that 20% don't respond. It's almost mathematical. And so from 15, I'm not great at math, but I've done this so many times, we're gonna lose 3 probably. It's very, very unusual that all respond. And frankly, that's okay.
right.
Those 3, that they didn't love us as much as we loved them. Now we have a lot more information though. We have some of these questions will be open-ended, so we're better able to evaluate their policing philosophies, their writing skills, although it's a take-home assignment. Sometimes we're gonna find very poor writing skills. My wife is an English teacher. She checks everything before it goes out the door, but sometimes we'll find, wow, this is pretty weak or pretty poor. From that point, we'll be able to do a further reduction. From that 12, the ultimate goal is to reduce the pool to roughly 4 to 6 candidates for an assessment center, which I'll explain when I get to that point. If after that review of the responses we don't feel comfortable reducing it to that 4 to 6, we'll initiate another process. It could be me doing phone interviews or me and Mr. Senior doing phone interviews, but we'll implement another step to further reduce the pool of candidates. So let's assume we're down to 6 now. I will reach out to their references, not a full background investigation, but their references, their boss, and again, anyone that uses reference will do Google and things of that nature. And if there are no issues there, then I will engage in very frank discussions with these candidates regarding their expectations. The worst thing that can happen is to go through a process, offer the job to someone, and have them turn it down for something that we could have determined in advance. So I'll have frank discussions with them regarding their salary expectations. If they didn't take the ad seriously and thought, gee, now that I'm one of a small group, I can get $180,000, I want to find out before we spend the time and effort in the assessment center. If they think they can live 50 miles away and commute, that could be an issue. If they think they're going to get a 10-year contract, that would be an issue. So I'll have some very frank discussions, not to discourage them, but to, again, evaluate their commitment to accepting the position. And once we have that comfort level, they will be invited to participate in an assessment center. In the assessment center basically is us replicating the types of challenges that the police chief in Cohasset would encounter through role-playing and written exercises. I bring in 3 police chiefs who will, the only time these 3 police chiefs will be given the identities of the candidates is several weeks before the assessment center when I'm lining up my assessors. I will provide the names and say, do you have any relationship with any of these candidates that would impact your ability to be impartial? it's conceivable, they might say, I think I know that person, I might have seen him at a meeting, but there's nothing that would impact my impartiality. But to the extent possible, we want to assure anonymity. During the actual assessment center, the candidates will be wearing numbers. They will be scored during the entire process by numbers. I'll be the only person that knows who the real candidates are. And actually, as a further blind, they'll be given 2 written exercises. One will be a take-home exercise, and one will be an in-house exercise that they're given during that day. On those exercises, it's not even candidate number 1. They put a 4-digit number. That I'm the only person that will know what that 4-digit number is. So when the assessors are evaluating their written exercises, they will not even know that it's candidate number 1. In other words, if candidate number 1 did very well on a role-playing exercise, I don't want the assessors to say, boy, that's a sharp guy, when they're reviewing the written. So it's a double blind. I'm the only person that will know who the candidates are and their backgrounds until all the scoring is done. The structure of the assessment center would be that the candidates are in a remote room, and this would be a perfect place for an assessment center. We bring a candidate in, we read a scenario to them. The scenarios are the exact same for each candidate. They're all timed, and there's role playing. Usually the assessor or myself will play a role. It could be you're making a presentation of the Board of Selectmen. And they're given some very specific instructions, and then we engage in our role playing. Each of the exercises will be designed to evaluate 4 knowledge, skills, and abilities. The assessment center is designed in its entirety to evaluate 8 knowledge, skills, and abilities, such as leadership, communication, judgment, management, integrity. Because a typical assessment center will be 6 exercises, and each exercise evaluates 4 of those knowledge, skills, and abilities. Each of those knowledge, skills, and abilities will be evaluated on multiple exercises. Mr. Senior will be observing the entire process. At the end of the process, we will submit an extensive report. The report will have numerical standings for each of the candidates, their overall scores. It will have scores on each of the exercises. It will have narrative comments regarding the candidate's strengths and weaknesses, and we'll have a score on each of the 8 knowledge, skills, and abilities. So we're really looking at the candidates from as many angles as we possibly can. After that, Mr. Senior we'll sit down and discuss the candidates. And I assume that a typical assessment center, sometimes it eliminates candidates and sometimes it picks candidates. Somebody might crash and burn and some might rise to the top. So Mr. Senior will from his observations in the report and our discussions, will select candidates for, I'm assuming, an in-person interview, and I'll support that to the extent that it's wanted. Ultimately, a selection will be made and a conditional offer of employment will be made, subject to a physical, psychological, contract negotiations, background investigation, and obviously recognizing that the board has to ratify that. And I don't know at what point that takes place, but that pretty much is the process. We anticipate it will take 3 to 3.5 months. And that's moving fairly quickly. We need to give candidates adequate time. The ad will run for a month, so right away there's a month loss there. I don't know, I might have failed to mention that, well, the offer will be subject to a background investigation. That will take a week to 10 days. That will be, to the extent possible, on-site, looking at personnel files, speaking in person to superiors, subordinates, and peers, speaking to neighbors, reviewing and verifying education, credit check, things of that nature. Credit check is quite important. Someone's going to be managing, an extensive budget.
Peter, do you do the background investigation?
That'll be an individual that works for me, yes, okay. But that'll be done by badge quest. So right away, if we're talking a month for the ad and 2 weeks for the background investigation, giving people about 10 days to respond to the written questions, you can see where, and that's moving fairly fairly quickly, but I feel pretty comfortable by mid-April, hopefully sooner, the identity of your chief will be known. And I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you have.
Do you wanna just go one by one? Kevin, do you have any questions, or Steve?
Would you go ahead?
I wanna know what you've been eating. If you're 70 years old, I just wanna know what your diet looks like, cause I'd like to be like that at 70.
Oh, like I spent a lot of, they say that you don't age when you're on the water fishing, so, I hope to stop the clock cold.
Nice work.
Thank you.
Is the sale of your company transacted?
Yes, but I still have a very active, extremely active role. This, I will be doing, when I sold the company, there were approximately 12 jobs that I had laid some groundwork on, and frankly, the groundwork I laid here was sending several letters, probably 2 years ago, but expressing my interest in working on the process, so those were excluded from the sale. The current owner will more than likely be one of my assessors. I'm frequently one of his assessors. The new owner is retired Chief Bob Pomeroy, who's the Plymouth Police Chief. Bob is an attorney. He's done training nationwide for FBI leader. One of the few people on earth that I would even consider selling the company to. But this will be my job. No different than if I still maintain full ownership.
What, the folks that you bring in as assessors, what typically are, first of all, I guess I should ask, are they consistently the same people?
I have a group of approximately 10 to 12 chiefs that I use, and those that I pick, depends certainly their availability, but I try to get chiefs that come from similar sized departments and things of that nature, although they're frankly all committed to community policing and people of extraordinary background. And the resumes will be submitted to, Mr. Senior has the right to refuse any, but resumes will be provided to him in advance. And I have the pick of the litter. I get constant calls from chiefs, and they are superb.
Okay. You were describing a number of factors that your assessment center tries to pull in. From your experience, how would you weight those factors that you're viewing? In your assessment center, you named, among other things, leadership capabilities, management skill,
Yes.
integrity, and so on. So how would you weight? What weight would you give as superior and secondary to those particular elements that you're looking for?
Do you mean which of those do I think are the most important?
Right.
I always say that I think there are 3 qualities that are absolutely essential to a chief. It's like a stool, and if one is missing, it's going to fall, and that's leadership, communication, and integrity. And if one of those is lacking, certainly you could be a competent person of integrity, but if you can't communicate or lead, you're not going to succeed. If you're lacking integrity, you have nothing. I think those are the 3. And our assessment centers, frankly, those are frequently evaluated, more frequently than some of the others.
And
Could I interrupt for 1 second? To further, when a candidate completes an exercise, there are specific points that we're looking for in their response to that exercise. So certainly, Miles, when they go out the door, the 3 assessors discuss that candidate's performance. Let's assume it's one that leadership would be one of those that are evaluated. Assessor number 1 might say, I think that candidate did a great job, I gave him a 92. Someone else might say, well, I saw a little bit of weakness here, I gave him an 89. And then the other assessor would voice his opinion. They would discuss that score on leadership and reach a consensus, dialogue back and forth. So they reach a consensus on each of the 4 knowledge, skills, and abilities that are evaluated for that particular exercise before the next candidate is brought in.
that actually brings up a question. Is there a particular training structure for someone to act as an assessor?
There is some, but those that have gone, frankly, haven't been pleased. So
You mean there's like
I
a national,
I train them. There is the International Association of Chiefs of Police does some training, but people that have attended, frankly, that have been my assessors, that said, you know, Steve, I thought it would benefit me. Didn't think too highly of it. There's also, frankly, training to participate in assessment centers. And by experience, it's been a dismal failure. I've seen it hurt candidates where they're trying to think 2 steps ahead of us. We are what we are, and if a role-playing exercise designed properly, within a minute, they think they're in the real world.
Okay, I was asking the question because the way that you would represented the scenario in which 3 assessors may come to a relatively broad dispersion of views on a grade. Is there a basis for each of them arriving at a score? Or is it relatively arbitrary? I really liked him, that's a 92, or
No.
it's pretty good, I think that's an 88, you know?
It's a little bit of both. Certainly, we're talking people with tremendous experience and a lot of experience in the profession. But again, there are points. I don't want to discuss specifics of exercise, but there are, for each exercise, there might be 8, 9, 10 issues that should be addressed. To the extent they could be addressed. Gee, I thought he was, regarding empathy, I thought he was a little bit weak on that. I thought he was a little bit confrontational with that person. So, is it an exact science? No. But great people and a lot of structure to the process. I think it is, in all the experience I've had in hirings, I think it's the best that's out there.
Well, I think what I was hoping to hear, and I think what you're touching upon, is that in any given role player exercise, in which you have the assessors scoring based upon a live performance, there are subject areas that have to be addressed.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. That's
Yes.
where I was going with it.
I'm gonna keep moving. Karen, do you have any comments or questions?
No, it's very nice to meet you, and thank you very much for coming in and giving us the presentation, which was really very helpful to understand the process and how extensive it is. Just a small question. On the citizen survey, is that something that you, like a standard thing template that you have, or that you do for each town, or?
I do it in many towns, and Mr. Senior and I have discussed it. I'm not sure the final format that it's going to take, but I believe it's going to be in the, maybe you could address it.
I think what we're gonna do is, we'll have it available on the website.
Yep.
And I'll put a hard copy at the library, but everyone's gonna do it that way, and people that bring them back here. So, that's probably how we'll do it. And it's not a vote for a person. It's
General.
it's thematic, right? And I think, and it's also anonymous. People don't have to put their names on anything. I mean, and again, it's not a, it's not a poll. It's a pulse reading. In fact, they've done this in other communities, and we went back and forth about this, about how to do that in a way that would, allow public participation without making this,
So it's not intended to be, I don't know if referendum's the right word.
No.
On our police department,
No.
but to be how do people within our community view policing? What kind of policing are they looking for? Is that?
I think basically we're looking for input as to the qualities needed in the next chief and the direction the community would like to see the department go in. So in general terms, general areas.
Yep.
I just wanna tag on what Karen is saying now. Will there be, or do you see a value and an opportunity for you to personally talk to citizens, and get their, personal input, as to what they're looking for in their next police chief? And have you ever done anything like that? Has there ever been either an opportunity for them to come and meet with you one day and set up, or a forum or something, or whatever, something where, actually, I would almost think that it might be something where you could just personally talk to whoever wanted to personally talk with you to give you a feel. What do you think about that?
I've done that in some communities, and frankly, the response has been dismal. I mean, I've been in high school auditoriums and with cable and refreshments, and 3 people show up, and one of whom hates cops, and probably some of them got a ticket, and one who loves cops, and that's cop's wife, no, more than likely cop's mother.
Yeah, right.
The wife might be somewhere in the conflicted, but just been my experience that I believe the citizen survey, people feel more comfortable with it, but it's certainly nothing I'm opposed to.
I wonder if on the citizen survey, if a person goes to the effort to send it in, they can't also make a notation, I'd like to have 15 minutes with the assessor or something.
Well, the only, and again, I know the general theme of trying to be open and transparent. That's one of the reasons that Mr. Unsworth is sitting here tonight. I wanna make sure people understand the process and what it's all about. There's only a finite amount of time in this process too, and I think that after the time I've been able to be here and with the people I've been able to work with, I think I've gotten a pretty good vibe of where we are. But again, it's always great to have someone who's done this a long time to balance it. I think the survey will answer most of that. I just don't, I'm not sure how
Well,
much
what
more
if
it'll
somebody,
add.
what if somebody wanted to talk with it? Would we allow that? What do you think about that, if somebody wanted to talk with, Stephen?
Just if I could just weigh in on this, and I know Karen's, wants to weigh in. My thinking on that is, this is ultimately Chris's hire. So, to the extent that, one of the reasons for bringing in Badge Quest is to just step it away and give it a little objectivity in terms of kind of the global design of the process. I think that the individuals who wanna have a conversation have specific kind of non-global issues that they wanna discuss, and I think those are more appropriately directed to the hiring.
Which, by the way, I have. I've met.
And
If people want to meet with me,
and
they're
there
free
may
to.
be-
People have met with me. I've met with a number of people, so I'm happy to continue to take that kind of input if they want to. I've appreciated it. I understand that some people have their own personal perspectives, and I fully understand that. But I've been open to meeting with people about this and other things. So if people want to come and see me, they're welcome to.
Certainly, I'm confident that each of you is open to your constituents, so if they raise issues through you and you wanna convey them to me, that absolutely would be welcome. Again, the door is wide open, I would welcome the opportunity to speak with each of you.
I just wanted to weigh in and agree with Diane. I think that the process that the board followed in selecting the town manager to protect the integrity of the process and to remove any even appearance of influence or bias worked very well. We're very happy with Chris. And I think that this appointment is one of the most important appointments that can be made in the town, and that whoever is going to be our police chief, needs and deserves to have that process be as unassailable as possible. We may not all agree with whatever the decision is, but if we know that it was a fair process going forward, then the hope would be that the next, whoever is our police chief, would enjoy the support and the confidence of the community. So I would rather rely on the survey.
Diane?
Martha?
Yes, I like what you've said, and I think it's a good process. But I'd like to know, what's your success rate with the chiefs that you recommended?
Oh, boy. It's been frankly extraordinary. I love when I reach out to a chief and they tell me they're loving the job. I have a grin from ear to ear. I've done 45. I don't think any one of the 45s has been terminated. I know one chief left after about a year and a half, that there was some family issues, and I actually came in and did a process again at a greatly reduced rate, because I just felt bad that just a year and a half, although the town was very pleased with the duties that had been performed. I'm sure some chiefs are happier than others. Sometimes boards change, or town managers change, and the chemistry isn't quite the same. But I really have to say that, and Chris or Mr. Senior has a list of references. I didn't include mine here because it just kills so many trees, but
Thank you.
feel free to do a little bit of checking on all of them. I think you're gonna find very successful. Bear in mind, we're dealing with people, though, not, it's
And a tough job.
what we do is half art and half science, and sometimes life interjects, but I'm deeply committed to the profession. My son is a police officer who I'm extremely proud of. He's a lieutenant in Watertown. He took the oath of office. I was thinking before here, I was gonna say, I took it about 45 years ago, I took the oath of office, but it doesn't go away when you retire. And my commitment is to the profession and to this town. And I promise you, I will do my very best. This will be my last police chief search, so,
Go out.
and although I ride away into the sunset, I'm always looking over my shoulder, and it reflects on me and the profession, so rest assured, I will do my very best for you.
Thank you very much.
I just, actually, it was a follow-on from something Martha was asking. Based on what you know about the current force here, size, its makeup and so on, what similar size communities, or what similar communities have you conducted a search for?
I wish I did. I don't know if you have that list. But we're doing Weston now. We're doing Rockport. I've done Dover. I've done Ashby, a very small department. Done Sterling.
These are all police chiefs, sir?
Yes. I'm guaranteed. I forgot 10 that are similar in size. But does that give you a?
It does, it does.
Oh, this all went into the review process
Did
for
you-
selecting, yeah, so wanted to make sure that there was not just a police chief search, but something that matched what we are. I mean, you know, there's no community just like Cohasset, but,
Certainly is not.
Every community is unique. That is for sure.
but there's a lot of communities that have similarities in a variety of ways. And again, I think that Steve's, number one, I did hold him to the fact I want this to be his best search. But I said that with the diversity of background, the fact that, you know, he's working with me, not, you know, he's not making the decisions for me. He's there to make the process, to add a dimension to the process I just don't have, and I rarely admit that. And by the way, I've also had our HR consultant along too. She sat in the first meeting, and she brought a whole independent third-party thought of process, and it was very helpful. I'm going to have her involved in this as well.
No, I appreciate that, Chris. My questions are more to gain information from my perspective. This is, as Diane was pointing out, this is chief among the duties in your role, and so have at it to get pull together the tools that you need. The decision, however, ultimately is yours. Yes, guidance and professionalism can be provided by Mr. Unsworth, but ultimately the decision is yours.
And I want this to be the only search like this I ever have to do.
Thank you.
As far as
Great.
close proximity, I think the closest two are Pembroke and Duxbury that I did. I've done both of those.
The more
Twice the
recent Duxbury
size.
one.
Yes.
Just, I have a question about where Chris is at, what part of the process does he engage in? Is he
Well, all of
involved? So even in the weeding down of from the 70 to the 16?
The resumes are going to come through me,
Okay,
through this office.
okay,
We have a separate email that I've set up now to run through that. So,
okay.
and then obviously they'll all be shared, but I'll look at it, I'm going to see everything. And I'm also planning on sitting through the entire assessment process,
Great.
off in the corner, but I'll be there. Which is it's kind of an interesting experience to sit there and see. It's almost like an extra bonus interview process, right? To see people in different ways, which you don't normally get to see. So.
Great, okay. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Is there anybody out there that's dying to weigh in, ask Mr. Unsworth a question? You need to come up and yes, sorry. And introduce yourself and address for the record, thanks.
Jack Kiley, 46 Black Rock Road, Chairman of the Capital Budget Committee. Thanks for coming, appreciate it. We have a unique situation in this town where we have an acting town chief who has pretty significant support among a lot of the citizens in town. And I'm wondering how you use how those situations get evaluated versus clean slate where there's an open slot and you're just looking at candidates.
That frankly is more of a decision for Mr. Senior. I will be looking at each candidate's history in its entirety. The fact that someone is in the town, knows the players, et cetera, that has value. We're looking at everything, education, experience, diversity of experience. My assessor certainly will know nothing about his background. It's like a written exam. The exam is the exam, and then we evaluate the results. But from my perspective, all I can say is I look at the candidates in their entirety. Not to be offensive, but your opinion or others doesn't factor into it at this stage of the process. It's not an election. It's not
It is a political decision, though.
it certainly is.
But that's Chris's, right?
Right,
Right.
but that's not my political decision.
Okay,
Right.
if, yeah, so I don't wanna have a conversation between, any of you two, to direct it to the board. Karen, did you have a question?
Well, just to that point, I wanted to, what we've been told, and I was told in the previous town manager search, was that if you have, in that instance, it would have been an interim town manager, an acting town manager, and that if candidates perceived that that candidate had the inside track, that you may not attract as many or the quality candidates. So how is that addressed?
We've actually discussed that. The fact that there is an interim chief, and there's been an interim chief for several years, I anticipate will have some impact. There'll be people that won't reach out to me. People can be somewhat guarded. They want to succeed. So if they feel, gee, there's very little chance this is just window dressing. And frankly, if I thought it was window dressing, I'd walk away. I've walked away from jobs in the past. So I do think it will have some impact. Those candidates that reach out to me, and many will, some of them know me by first name or by reputation, they'll say, can you tell me about the town, et cetera, is it a good place to work, how's the board, how's the town manager? I understand there's an interim, is this a done deal? I'll answer those questions honestly, but I do anticipate that some will kind of read their own tea leaves and say, I won't apply. So it'll have some impact.
I'd like to, move on
Thank
in the
you
agenda.
very much.
Mr. Untor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And, we look forward to getting the survey and filling it out and being in communication and a successful search.
Steve, you prefer the lower email, the bottom?
Yeah, the other one went with the sale.
Okay.
So if you email, that will go to Bob Pomeroy.
All right.
But yeah, I'd welcome an opportunity to speak to any of you. If you want me to reach out to you, you could work that out through Mr. Senior, but to the extent you want to reach out to me, speak with me, we'll make it happen.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Yes, thank you.
You need anything else? That's it. So next up on our agenda is, continuation of our, special events discussion. Give me 30 seconds to get my materials out. So just sort of an update on where we've been over the past couple of, probably the past month or so. The board did put, a moratorium on requests for, new events in town. And we did that so that we would have an opportunity to kind of step back and review our policies, our procedures, our application process, et cetera. We will entertain applications for events that have previously been held in Cohasset. And in fact, on the 20th, we will be, we'll have the application for all the Memorial Day festivities in the Healing Field. So that will go forward with the old application until we finalize what we wanna do, and then we can decide it at that time, and we can even discuss it tonight if you want, whether to lift the moratorium. So Karen and I met with Jen Oram and Chief Sylvia. I don't know, Chief, do you wanna come up and just kind of be part of this conversation? And in our packets is a lot of, material. And I do wanna thank, Karen in particular and Chief Sylvia for, hours and hours of work, putting this together. What I would like to do tonight, if the board is interested, is spend some time really talking about our proposed policy, which outlines a procedure to be, and if the board is willing to, adopt that policy and set a new procedure in place. I think the application form, which is also included in our packet, is probably still needs a little bit more shaping, and I don't wanna go through that and, make, edits this evening on that. So help me out here, hang on. Thank you, I thought so. So the proposed event policy it starts on the left side. It says the town of Cohasset events, policies and procedures. And really what the other piece of this that probably is the cliff notes is the actual schedule, which is also in our packets, the timeline, the event timeline. So what we discussed was having a notice of intent, and we seem to be using that terminology a lot lately, but basically, anybody who wants an event in town, and we have defined that in the policy as something that impacts public safety, impacts road closures, and there's a few other little bars that get set. They need to fill out a notice of intent 6 months prior to their event. Now, for most events of the scale that's gonna impact public safety or close down a road, they should know about it well in advance of 6 months. So 6 months is a minimum. So they would fill out a notice of intent, which we have also drafted, and it's in this packet, and be charged a notice of intent filing fee of $25. It's pretty basic. That asks a lot of the questions that were in our original application form. It kind of takes the application form, splits it into two. One part is just the who, what, where, when, how, what's the impact to Cohasset, what are the tangible benefits to Cohasset, and that will trigger, at that point, a meeting of the Board of Selectmen to say, okay, this is something we're willing to send off on the next step. Now, somebody might say, we wanna set up the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, the same day as Cohasset High School graduation, and we will, at that notice of intent point, say, we'll deny it, and it will go no further. Once the board reviews the NOI and approves or disapproves the concept, that then triggers the formal application, a permit fee, which we will discuss at another time probably, and it will trigger a series of steps, the most important of which, and the newest, is an event review committee, which is made up of, and it's in the packet, public safety, DPW, different town departments. And they will take that application and they will basically synthesize it and come back to the Board of Selectmen with a report. Yes, this is doable in Cohasset. If we're gonna do it in Cohasset, they're gonna need to get a permit to use the pier, cause they're bringing in a fishing fleet or whatever. That group, that internal group, Event Review Committee, will set in motion and work with the proponent, the series of, parking plans, public safety plans, road closure plans. If it's a road race, is it gonna be 1 lane, 2 lanes? How are we gonna how could this event succeed? Then they'll do a report for the Board of Selectmen, and the timeframes are all spelled out in this, event timeline. And at that point, we will have all the information, we'll have the proponent of the, activity before us, and we will have full discretion to approve, disapprove, modify, but at that point, we'll have had all the input from public safety, most importantly, and other, departments in town. So I just summarized that. Bob, do you wanna add, or Karen, you wanna go first?
No, go ahead.
When we reviewed all of this, the whole idea was very simply what we've had is some people that have come in and they fill out full applications for an event, and there's been no input from anybody. And then they walk around and they hand the event to somebody and they try and get a signature on it, and it's very piecemeal and broken, and there's a lot of things that nothing works together. What we discussed and what we came up with was very simply the events that have had pre-event meetings, such as the triathlon and the road race, using the big two as the examples. They sit down with all of public safety and everybody else well in advance of the event, and they know exactly what they need to do prior to it going. And then when it's all through, there's a post-race or a post-event meeting to discuss anything that didn't go well. So what we were driving at with this was that same idea that we would have a single meeting, once they filed the notice of intent and the board has given them the go-ahead to go.
Apply.
All right, to apply, then they would sit down with all the people that are going to be impacted, all departments that are gonna be impacted, and go through this one time, so everybody's in the same room, and everybody hears the same answers.
They literally be in the same room in your
Yes.
vision of this?
Yes. And that's what as I said, when we've done this, even using the movie a month ago, as an example, they sat down at the police station with representatives from fire and police and went through exactly what they wanted to do. And we told them what we thought was good ideas and what we didn't think and what they would need to do to make those things happen. And everybody got the same answers to the same questions at the same time. It really worked out well. And I think that's kind of where we were going with this idea of the board approving the event and then the event going forward. Because right now, we have some events that come to us and just tell us what they're going to do. And I know you saw me sit up here not too long ago and say, that doesn't happen. So this would be to make sure that that doesn't happen again.
Karen?
Well, I mean, I guess the only other thing, and that was an important, part of it, but the other part was to, make sure that the responsibility for obtaining approval from the various departments, that the event and the event organizer understand that that is their responsibility to do. The staff here in this office will be helpful, as they always are, and that they can, but it is not their responsibility to get signatures and sign off. The other thing was there was some, in going through the original, a lot of the information, surprisingly, a lot of the information that is here was contained in the original event application. It just was sort of all smushed together in a paragraph and got, maybe got missed, so, taking it out. But a lot of the deadlines were different deadlines. And so what we wanted to do was just to say, 30 days prior to the event, the event organizer will have everything completed. And then it comes back to the board, because now we approve things conditionally. We say, well, if you get a health certificate, you get this and that and the other thing, then it's okay to go. They never come back to us and say, we've gotten all this stuff. You know, I know that Tracy and Jen check the things, but, so that way, and then it's 30 days before, it's not 2 weeks before the event.
The other thing that, we talked about, and it's not in the packet, but, you know, that we're issuing a permit. And I mean, I literally think of a physical permit, and we are also thinking about getting this all done online too, and that's another step, but, you know, there's a permit, and, you know, they can know they're gonna get a permit, but we're not signing that permit until we know everything's in place. And I don't think, given the events, that we've had, and we have, in the back of our packet, we have a list of the events from last year, you know, the truth of the matter is, there isn't a big capacity or a willingness to add more large events in town. I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything that we don't all feel, to some degree. So the fact that we have what we have, I think all of these organizations and individuals, if we set up the conversation the right way through these policies and procedures and the new application, it's gonna be a very easy thing for them to fulfill. One thing that, you know, I guess what I would like to do is just, you know, ask the board how they would like to proceed. I would like to recommend that we, if you're willing to, approve the policy and procedure, subject to some grammatical edits.
Well, and also, Bob pointed out to me, C is used twice.
Yes,
And
little things like that.
And also, Bob had mentioned that under the road closures, that perhaps the one lane use should be,
Taken out.
put in the general conditions, moved up front to the general conditions. So that's something. I would also like to have this run by, it's a policy.
Town council,
Town
absolutely.
council, for, not just for form, but for content. to make
Absolutely.
Before we adopt anything.
So I guess, I did have some other changes, and there's a couple of policy things that I would just like to get the board's opinion on. One is, in here, we listed Cory checks.
Yeah,
I was thinking that on that, if, maybe if
So
the, one of the say the police department thought it was necessary,
yeah,
to
only
leave
the
it to
police
them.
can do them.
Yeah, right.
So maybe we
Leave it
could,
as something that's in their opinion.
maybe we could add that to the, maybe we can put that in the event review committee, that they would determine whether, because one of the things we left to the event review committee is to identify if any other permits are needed. Because, for example, when they were doing the movie and they sprayed that fake snow, it was fine and it didn't need this, but one of the questions I had at the time was, if they're spraying fake snow on the beach, do they need to go to Concom, right? Cause they're altering, you know, it wasn't a permanent alteration, but that's the thing, that is what we're hoping the event review committee will be, the kind of the experts that are employed by the town of Cohasset that will be able to identify those things, and that would be the trigger. The police said, you're bringing in this is a carnival unlike anything we've ever seen, we need everybody that's there Cory checked, that could be a condition of the approval.
Well, I have
request.
checked the Cory checks, that yes, it should be done also to be put with, the beginning with the police, because you don't want.
I would suggest to the board that the effort here was to tighten this up to a point where people had a general guideline of what they have to do to
Yeah.
make, and it seems, you might think that we're making them jump through hoops, but the way I look at that very simply is, if you wanna have an event in this town, then you're gonna jump through
Jump through
hoops.
hoops.
That's
Sorry.
right, that's right.
But that being said, I don't want it to be so tight that there isn't leeway by each one of the departments. So if you make the comment about certain things may be required, then that's fine, because then it's up to the individual departments to require certain things.
Okay.
So could I
Yeah,
recommend,
that makes sense,
you know, if anybody has anything to say kind of in general about this,
Yeah, just a couple
if you
things.
think this is well, I'll just finish my thought. If you think we're on the right track, then we can go meet amongst ourselves again, make some final edits, we'll accept any, you know, edits that you see that we don't, and then we'll come back for a short discussion and approval in a couple of weeks.
Just as one specific thing quickly was, I did like the provision of there's an indemnification thing that we don't have now.
That's
I
right.
like that, so,
Yeah, I like that
that's a
too.
good thing to keep. And I'm sure the event committee, it sounds very good, you know. This will call for meetings and organizations between the departments that aren't existing now. We don't see a functional problem with that. I mean, and the vision I'm getting of this is that this event committee meeting may have to get together with the applicants, you know, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 times a year or something. Is that, you know, physically, is it, I'm sure
I
it's,
don't think it should be anything too drastic.
It won't be.
We're only looking at, if we have to sit down and go over the details to something like this, historically, it takes less than an hour.
Yeah.
So I don't see it being a huge task for all the departments to get together, and in some ways, it actually will be better that way, because we'll all be in the same room
Coordinate, yeah.
and coordinated all, yes.
And the appointees to this committee will be by the department, so that the fire department
Well,
will
it's-
appoint someone to this committee, or how
It's
have you?
sort of in existence already.
Yeah, you thought about it?
Pretty much does.
And that's why I didn't know, it's not a formal Board of Selectmen committee, it's a
Right.
department review. So I wasn't sure if it's a
It's a town manager, yep.
committee. And so that's why there's such, you know, cause Jen is always in, Tracy from the town manager's office, the police chief, the fire chief. Abutters have to be notified, so the assessors should weigh in on it, they should know.
Yeah, it really does come down to just that, which departments are being impacted, and those would be the ones that would sit in that committee.
And they'd be
If it's a
responsible.
road race, the harbor master really doesn't
Right.
really wanna get involved.
And the
So
other
there are certain things that will be triggered, that will trigger certain groups to be involved, and that's why instead of just having a standing committee, we're calling it a committee, but in essence, it's department heads or their designees or whoever it might be from,
Yeah, right.
that will address the individual.
We could start it out that way anyways, it sounds like it.
Absolutely, and the other piece of this is not every single one of these events will have to send a
Right.
person here to, you know, these are really just the big ones that have a multiple impact, and that's something that will be determined. First of all, we can call for it when we read the notice of intent. But they'll, you know, the key folks, and it will be ultimately this office, till say, this is something that's gonna trigger a sit down. But all those people will still sign off on the application.
I had noted questions in doing this that we, whether we needed to get, separate insurance if people are having horse-drawn carriages or things like that. Usually those companies carry their own insurance, but should we also be included on their insurance for liability? Steve and I well know that horses have minds of their own.
Well, you know, and there's,
And then the other thing picked up from one of the other towns was liquor liability insurance, which we've never done, and I didn't know whether it's something,
but
we should ask for guidance on.
Maybe.
we do require it, right, when we give a one-day liquor permit. So the one-day liquor license, which we're gonna talk about in a few minutes, that actually does require, I think, some kind of, that they must, in order to serve alcohol, they must carry a certain level of insurance.
They must.
They
Yeah.
must.
That
But if
does-
it's on town property, then we can impose that. That's, the other thing is, we can, you know, that's part of the event review committee, and our responsibility is to say, you need an entertainment permit, you need a road closing permit, you need a A, B, C, D, and E. At this point, we haven't really allowed, except once last year, any alcohol on town property in an organized manner,
Yeah, and we should,
so.
I don't think we should.
We could make that that might be something the board would wanna make as a condition.
Right.
For any service?
Anything.
Well, I don't know, I
Think
mean,
about that would cross
yeah.
out author talks, right?
Thank you very much. I mean, these are the things we have to have a conversation about.
or like the author talks at the library.
Oh,
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
right, Steve.
Yep, I mean,
So-
that, technically those need, yeah.
So it just, I mean, I
But that would be through, that's a one-day liquor license policy, that wouldn't be triggered, that wouldn't be considered an event.
well,
Well,
just
it's
give
also
it,
not coming through us, cause it's on the library property, but.
one way or another, give it a fair amount of thought, because, you know, if in fact you end up using a different facility for that event, or there's another one that's adult oriented, and you very simply wanted to
Well,
serve
I was just, as you
know.
said that, I remember the drama club asked us for a one-day one for, the cabaret, so I think that's, yes.
It's something we should talk about, but
Okay.
one thing that triggers the one-day liquor license right now is, which requires insurance, is, a one-day liquor license requires insurance, is if it's being sold. So the author talks are free. So the question is, because it's in town, right?
No, I was just thinking, you know.
No. Because there's no transaction, they don't
No.
they don't need a one-day liquor license. But the question that there's wine pouring
Yeah,
is another
it's
story.
not about someone's getting paid somewhere, right? If alcohol is purchased somewhere in the chain, it becomes a
Yes.
sale.
That's right.
So if you buy you may serve it to your guests for free, but if you, I shouldn't say that, it's not like at home. The author talking, someone's buying it and pouring it at a public event, it becomes a sale and for purposes of sale.
It's,
We have, by the way,
remember, it has to do with,
Let's let-
it has to do with purchase, transportation and distribution.
That's the word,
Yes.
possession,
Possession.
yeah.
So the
but I
other-
don't think we wanna go down the path.
Nope.
Yeah, the other question I had was in regard to, we've never had to do it, so I don't even know if it's something we wanna do, but one of the other towns, requires a deposit to be filed, and if there's any damage or cleanup that needs to be done by the town, hopefully that covers it, and if not, then it's returned to the event. Just something to think about.
Something to think about. So let me just quickly touch upon fees. One of the things, and just get a little bit of your input, one of the things that held it up was, in Falmouth, for example, they charge fees on a per day, per event size basis. So, and I don't know that I have my folder. So for example, events of up to 49 people, it's $25 a day. Road races, less than 5K, 50 to 300 people, it's $100 a day, or 300 plus people, it's $200 a day. So we could get very complicated with this. I mean, we have like the farmer's market, for example. So, we have the farmer's market, which is, a weekly thing for 4 months. We don't wanna charge them a per day. They're not making a whole lot of money. So that's a much more complicated discussion. I started to do like a spreadsheet and thought, well, it impacts public safety, it does this, it's, no roads are closed, if you close a road, it's a point. So it's a much more complicated discussion that I'm not willing to have here, but if anybody has any general thoughts or ideas as to how to come up with some kind of a matrix of charges that doesn't become very restrictive, especially for things like the farmer's market or some of our local homegrown terrific nonprofit events.
Well, ultimately, I don't think you're gonna come up with a matrix that treats everything the same or equally. I think you just have to be relatively fair-minded in the way it's constructed and be ready to evaluate changes as they need to come along. But I would argue that an event that requires active policing, and I don't care who pays for the hours, but if it requires active policing to provide for the safety of the participants as well as the public, then almost by definition, that's going to require, or should require a greater cost to the applicant. So
In
from-
addition to what they're already paying for with respect to paying for a detail. in terms
Yes,
of
and
fee.
as an event fee. Look, these guys are devoting their time. We're paying, as a town, we're paying the chief of police, the fire chief, DPW, harbor master, and so on, to take on the duties of their roles. And this is part of that, but if it becomes a 26-time-a-year get-together, well, that's time that they're not using for something else, all right? Now, there's no way that the fee structure is going to completely compensate us for that time away, but the fact is that it ought to reflect that level of activity, thought, and energy that goes into the planning side of it. So, as an example, if you've got a bike ride running through town and it's going to take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half to clear that bike ride, that's a lot of activity for public safety, for DPW, and so on. And it ought to be reflected. On the other hand, something like the farmer's market stays put. Okay, you've got parking issues. You may have a road closure here or there, but it's defined and you know where it is. And if there is an emergency response, you're not the public safety is going to a specific spot due to that event as opposed to following the
Chasing
route or-
something.
Exactly.
That's a good point.
From that perspective, I think you could begin to scale it by way of the activity that goes into planning.
I was thinking that, and also size, so that, you know, maybe a road race of 100 people as opposed to a road race of 1,000 people.
Okay.
Madam Chairman?
Yeah, hang on, hang on one second, does any other board members have any?
So I just had, and excuse me, Agnes, I just had one other thing that, I don't know, I just wanted to make sure everybody noticed it when they read it, but we were talking about the full road closures. I think that that's something the board as a whole needs to discuss, that except when they, it would affect public safety, that no, any request for a full road closure would be denied. So that way our residents can come and go, and that the same, criteria which is set upon the triathlon, which if they don't stay in their lanes or anything, the participants are excluded, if the event organizers didn't, it would be their responsibility to make sure the participants comply, and if we got reports back that they weren't complying, then there'd be a moratorium, a 1-year moratorium on approving the event.
So my
That might be a little harsh, but.
My
if they step outside
thought
lanes,
on
we
that
can
is,
shoot
I have no problem with, being punitive if they don't comply with the conditions of their permit. I don't know that I wanna make that a policy, that piece within the policy. I think that should be at the discretion of the event review committee as to whether it's the kind of event that they can contain that way. So in other words, we could say that, we could just let them know we want that,
Well, we
but-
sort of are in saying, except in cases where public safety is affected, so then it would be the, police and fire and, department and others coming back to
Right.
us and saying, no, it's not safe, we can't do that in one lane.
But aren't most of these, I mean, where do we have full road closures
Well, the big one would be the
The
road
tri.
race by the sea.
and the road race?
The road race more than the tri. The tri, because of the nature of the tri, you can't wander all over the road with a bike or anything else, so you're told to stay in one lane only.
Right.
But we do close the road, because
Right.
very simply, having cars and, you know, for the most part, we don't let general traffic. Does that mean that somebody can come and go out of their driveway? Possibly, yes, they can. Out of a side street, yes, they can. The road race would be the big one because of the nature of the road race. You know, 1,500 people trying to run down Elm Street
Right.
in one lane is not going to work.
Right.
You know, even as far down as, you know, onto Jerusalem Road, it still hasn't stretched out enough.
So we could.
So it's kind of a case-by-case type of situation that, you know, when they get to North Main Street, could we ask them to stay on one side of the road? It's possible. I mean, that would be something that, you know, the police might wanna talk to the event coordinators in regards to that, because if you were on the left-hand side of the road, the right-hand side could be used for general traffic, as long as people are smart enough not to drive too fast.
What about the half marathon on Jerusalem Road?
Well, that would be another
That-
example.
And it's a narrow road to begin
And
with.
and to be honest, Martha, you're absolutely right, they wandered all over the road like,
Exactly.
you know, I
You know
won't
how
say
those
it.
But
runners
that's,
are.
that's a condition of permit.
Yeah.
But that would be again,
Condition.
something that would be taken on a case-by-case basis. If you only have 200, you're only supposed to have 200 runners, and you tell them they have to stay in the right-hand lane the whole way, then if they violate that, then it comes back to, you know, you didn't, you know, you overstepped your bounds here in regards to what your permit said. That's a different story. I look at the road, the bike races, or bike rides the same way. They're supposed to stay on one side of the road, but they have a tendency to wander into oncoming traffic, even though that lane is open for traffic.
Well, that, like I said, that becomes a condition of permit, and,
Mhm.
ultimately, if you hold I mean, if you're gonna make a project successful, you know, you've got the background review, the analysis, the plan, and then the monitoring, right? 4 steps. So you're meeting in conclusion currently on most of the larger events and reviewing what worked, what didn't. I think it would be absolutely beneficial that feedback comes into the next application for that same event.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that the board, if in fact, you've got 200 half marathoners, wandering like drunken sailors down Jerusalem Road, then that comes through. If after 2 or 3 years it's a consistent complaint, then I think the board would have cause to defer on the following application, based upon that review on a regular basis, so.
That whole idea of an after-action review is strictly for that purpose.
But I
It's
think it has to be-
outline issues and address them so that they don't happen again.
And I think that has to be somehow, some way incorporated back formally into this process.
So what I'd like to suggest, I'm gonna take any comments
Mark
from,
Agnes, I
yeah,
got her
I
up.
know Agnes wants to speak.
My fault.
And then what we'll do is, the chief and Karen and I will go back, with John, sit down, refine this a little bit. If you find anything that you want,
When you're gonna give it to
Altered.
town council, as you said.
once we clean up some of the language,
Yeah.
and as soon as we can get it, I mean, certainly he has a copy with our packets, so.
Yeah.
Since Paul is here, I mean, is there anything that he might, anything that he's heard that he might comment on, or?
Paul, anything on our event policy that's make
That
the
we've
hair
been dis-
stand up?
I would like a chance to make some edits to it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So you should have it, but we'll sit down,
I
we'll
reviewed it.
we'll finalize it, we can get your initial comments, we'll refine it, cause I just have some like grammatical changes, and we'll run it by you one last time before we bring it to the board for, an approval. Does that make sense?
However you'd
And
like.
we'll try to do that in the next couple of weeks.
Real quick thing.
Yep.
I don't know where we ended up on that moratorium thing, but
Yep.
I think that
I
is a
think we
little.
keep it in, I think we decided just keep it within the public, safety determination.
Yeah, not to have
And
the one
no,
yet, 'cause, yeah.
I did a big line through with a.
Exactly, yeah. Or if we could have something that, any failure to follow the rules may impact your future applications.
That's much better wording.
Yeah, and so
Yep.
that it-
Violators will be shot.
And I mean, ultimately,
Well, I like that,
the
Steve.
good news is ultimately throughout this, we do have ultimate discretion, but we wanna give everybody as much of a, understanding of what our expectations are. Agnes?
Yeah.
Wanna come up and do the formalities?
Agnes McCann, 104 Down Street. And I may have missed this in an earlier conversation that you may have had, but I just wondered if there were, I can think offhand of 4 things that would be eligible for sort of grandfather status, and are they being excused from any of the conditions? Or are you going right from, to me, it seemed like, the road race, the pumpkin patch, the Jingle Bell Walk maybe, or the Christmas fair are things that have been done for years in a certain way, and unless or until they change how they do it, you would think that we would just permit them the way they've always been.
No, I mean, we're thinking of treating everybody the same, and those events, we've discussed all of them. I mean, when we did this, we were thinking very organically, how, and that's one reason the fees aren't ready. How would this impact Arts Festival, the pumpkin patch?
Right,
But
and-
we
and
do
for-
feel that we need to have this process, which is, literally just a matter of filling out an event application that most of them do already.
I guess it was when I heard you start to talk about fees that it occurred to me that those seminal events are the ones that made everyone realize what a great place it is to have an
Absolutely,
event.
absolutely.
Maybe they,
And
get a little special
absolutely,
treatment.
and that's one reason we're not discussing fees, because
Okay.
that is, I
Got
mean,
it.
the Jingle Bell Walk and even the Village Stroll, those are things that are bringing people into the town and,
Thank you,
utilizing our
thank you. And
resources.
in my defense, can I say, I really only talk when I think I must, or that it will be helpful. I really don't even like to talk.
That's fine. And thank you for weighing in. No, anybody else? On down.
Peter Pescatori, 12 Lantern Lane. I was just curious how the event coordinators, the event people are gonna be communicated to. This is a pretty excellent policy, but it's gonna be culture shock for some of these people. So how are you gonna get this message out? I mean, I assume you're gonna put it on the website, but are you going to communicate directly to all the
Yes.
previous people who've
Yes.
run events?
Yes, we're not going
I
to.
mean, give them a heads up.
Yeah, everybody would be, and I think, no, I'm not sure I think at least those of us working on it agreed that the fee structure wouldn't take place until the new fiscal year,
Yeah,
so
I'm
it'll
not
be July
so much
first.
talking about the fee, I'm talking about the process
But the
that you put in
process-
place.
Yeah, we're not.
It's a lot different than they've experienced.
That's right,
And
and,
you need to tell them how it works.
You know, it seems like it's very different, but it really isn't.
Well, but
because a
you're
lot-
intending to enforce it now,
We're intending to enforce it.
which
That's
makes
right.
it different.
yes, no, the one thing we discussed was literally, these are the events that are traditionally have been held, this was all last year, almost all of them are things that have come through year after
So
year
you're
after
gonna
year. At
touch
least
each one of them
we're gonna
individually.
send them a letter, let them know about the new procedure,
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
which is not in place yet, because we haven't, anybody else? Okay, thank you all very much. Next is the one-day liquor license policy, which we looked at our last meeting. There was gonna be some small edits to that, and hopefully a discussion about whether it's ready for approval tonight. Did everybody have a chance to look at it?
Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I had was just under, do I need a special one-day liquor license? Is if we could bullet those things, cause I think everything else, other things are bulleted in ABC. I think it would just be clearer and more easily read if,
What was that?
It is, for example.
page 2 in the back where it says, do I need a special one-day
Yeah.
liquor
Oh,
license?
you mean, so it would be either by a direct sale of alcohol beverages, when tickets are sold to an event?
Yeah.
Or when a caterer, so there's 3 things there.
Yep.
Okay, you want those bulleted in,
Yeah, I did discuss with Jen today, who had a lengthy conversation with her contact at the ABCC, just on any of this, and his recommendation was, we're not gonna be able to address every single case, within this liquor license policy, and we shouldn't, because that could potentially trap us, so that it does say at the bottom, if you're unsure if your event will require a one-day liquor license, please contact this office, and if Jen doesn't know the answer, it's something she would communicate directly with the ABCC on. And that's, these are the state regulations, we haven't made up anything new or different, we just wanna have a formal application process that,
Did we have any, is there anything relative to insurance, is that relevant here?
so I thought so when I was
Yeah,
talking
kinda-
earlier,
I
right?
did too, but I was looking for it right now. And then the other adjunct question is, do we wanna consider an indemnification signature like you did for the other one? I just threw it out there.
So so we don't address the liquor liability, and on the indemnification, for a liquor license, this is mostly gonna be private entities doing something in a private facility. I'll pick on my friends at the Art Center, they're having a special event, it's a fundraiser, there's gonna be 150 people there in the galleries, and they're in the cost is a bar, so they're gonna need a one-day liquor license for that event. We don't necessarily need any indemnification, but the question is, do we need proof in order to issue their permit,
yeah.
whether they
It's not
are
mandated,
sufficiently,
It's not mandated, they
it's not
haven't-
mandated by law, there we go.
Yeah, there it is.
Where is it again? Just-
Right under the fee, on the first page.
Sick leave.
It says the
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen
Yeah.
advises each applicant to seek
Thank
liquor
you.
liability
Yeah.
insurance in conjunction with a special license, although such insurance is not mandated. It's kinda
By state law?
shocking.
Yeah,
This is all from the state.
Right.
this is state.
And then the indemnification, unless it were in one of our public buildings.
Well, why don't we ask council roughly, do we have any exposure, if someone goes to the Sunshine Center and gets overfed with liquor and gets something terrible happens, are we exposed?
Not usually.
Do we,
Anybody can sue anybody.
Well, yes.
That's why I said usually.
That's a mantra in my house.
do we need, should it be part of the license that a one-day liquor license still require a tips certified server? There's nothing in here about it.
The only, I'm gonna give you right, it's not required by law.
We could be the favorite destination in the state of
We're gonna
Massachusetts.
chase
for one-day
everybody
liquor
out of
license.
town. And a lot of times, especially small nonprofits, you know, they might have a, you know, I'm thinking, I'm not gonna pick on any other organization, but I can think of at least 6 right now where they have a member of the board pouring the bottles of, you know, pouring a glass of wine because they can't afford to have a caterer, you know, or,
Okay.
you know, I mean, there is very specific instructions as to where they can get the alcohol, and that's not debatable.
And this is only a one-day license too.
This is really just
This
for
is a little
mostly
different.
fundraisers.
Yeah,
No,
Right.
it's
I
an
think
open
there's-
question. I'm
Yeah,
not-
I know, I agree.
I don't certainly hold all the answers.
well, I think
Well, if
that
you
you
have something like up at the lightkeepers, they require you to have the tips.
Right,
So-
I mean,
Yeah.
let
But
me,
that's
let
a
me ask
larger
it
group.
differently. If this were to be held in some way, shape, or form with the assistance of the town, whether that be by property or, I don't know, some other
That's right.
unforeseen event, would you ask for it?
yeah, I think so, because
Okay.
that's a town building.
So on that, I think of, I go back to Kevin's initial thing, at that point, if it's being held in a town building, should probably require insurance, require an indemnification. But then I think about last year when we did it for the dramatic club, you know, it was like $20 and they had somebody going around pouring wine.
But that
Would
was
that
$20.
Well, now it's
So they got a
$50.
liquor license.
So they got a liquor
And they would get a liquor license, but do we have to reach,
50 now.
do we have to require the tips bartender, which pretty much makes that economically unfeasible? I'm not advocating, I'm just putting that out there,
Well, I was
that's
just
the
looking-
consideration we have to.
I just was looking back to the liquor regulations, for the big liquor license. And anybody who's going to serve is required to successfully complete alcohol management server training course.
On Mondays?
No, this is
Oh,
on
just
the,
in general?
on the liquor,
Our liquor
our
license.
liquor policy,
Yeah.
excuse me,
But that's,
regulations.
right, I mean, that's for restaurants and bars.
I don't know.
Could I recommend this? Could I recommend that we approve, or we take this particular special one-day liquor license policy to a vote? And then we can always amend it, because we have nothing in place right now,
Yeah, and also then we can give it to,
town council.
town council, but I think we should take a vote.
There's one other request that I have, if you're gonna, under this review, I would also suggest that, the policy receive a review from the enforcement agent.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree with you.
All right.
You mean the police?
Well, it's,
No,
it's
no.
only a
ABCC.
segment of the police, but they're, you know,
Boston.
I have this gnawing feeling that we're missing something, that's all. But you're right, we have nothing in place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know,
So-
there could be
So-
something missing. I will tell you that we didn't, you know, we've culled this from
I hope I'm wrong.
100 different places. That doesn't mean there isn't something that we should add.
Well, we do have the previous one is still in effect, the one that was done with the previous board.
What's that, the one day?
The one day.
Did we do a one day?
Way back when,
Doing one,
signed by
Okay.
Ralph Dormitzer, December 18th, 2006.
Like a fine wine, it's aged well.
So, I mean, I guess a question I would have is, has the liquor license, well, I guess the answer we got back before was that it's the ABCC and not town council. But is there anything that we would want town council to weigh in on? If you know, especially if.
Enforceability.
Did I take this from Sherburne? Did we take this from Sherburne?
There's a couple of changes I'd like to make.
Okay.
So,
Do you wanna suggest them right now? Are they minor?
well, yeah, it says number of people, I'd like to say number of participants.
Where is that?
On the front page.
Nice.
Oh, that's just,
Or attendees.
okay, or attendees.
page 2 where it says, for example, like they had a sentence there that says the above is not intended to be all-inclusive.
Great. And should we put that underneath the two bullets?
Yes. Immediately following the 2 bullets.
The above is not intended to be inclusive.
All inclusive.
All inclusive.
Because I'm aware of other situations where you might need a license that you haven't listed here.
And this was, exactly, and this was actually the question that Jen presented to the ABCC guy. And he recommended that she not throw out too many examples, cause for this very reason, give a couple, and if they have questions, call the office.
Yeah, all kinds of
I know,
cases.
I sat with her today and drove her crazy, I'm like, but what if somebody does a da-da-da, and the thing's at the da-da-da, and so. Okay, so with, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask town council if they had any, opinion one way or the other regarding Steve's concern on the tips server.
Well, that discussion used 2 different words. One was, are you required to have tips? And the answer is no, but you as the licensing issuing authority can require it. And so typically what that means is, on a case-by-case basis, you can require it when you think it's appropriate, and you can decide not to have it if you think it's appropriate. So that's where I would head with that.
And is that something that we should just add in here, that the Board of Selectmen,
May require.
as
May
the permitting
require.
authority, may require? You know, cause if somebody comes and say, we're having a party on the beach and we're having 1,000 people, we'll want tip certified, whereas they're having
Let it
200, we
go.
may not.
We have those on Nantucket on the 4th of July
Yeah,
with 1,000 people all getting drunk, and there's nobody certified anywhere.
They're all certified.
they're all having a good time with them.
That's a tough one to enforce.
Yeah,
No, but you could, and this would cover the other piece as well, we could simply add a notation onto the policy that the board at its discretion may require tip certified servers and/or additional insurance
as a condition of your permitting.
as a condition of permit.
The board at its discretion may require.
Or even be broader, we could put a section that says, you know, in this,
We can do whatever we want.
exactly, other conditions, well, no, other conditions.
Good to be the
When they bring in the
select.
application, then we can write in those other conditions.
The board at its discretion may
Require.
require other conditions,
And then have a line or two there, so that when we see it, if we wanna write something in,
right,
just like we do, and the planning board does that and so forth.
Including but not limited to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to at least list it so it's a heads up to people.
Well, we could list the kinds of things we're thinking about, and then leave a couple of lines in
And it
case
would
we
be the
think of
same kind of
something.
thing, that the above is not
Right.
all inclusive.
And if we wanna write something in when we're approving it, then we're done with it.
So Steve, did you say a tip certified server? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, there's, I think probably a more general term, because TIPS, if I remember correctly, is an acronym now for a specific certification course, but there are others. But leave it at that.
Just
for
say
the
or
moment.
equivalent.
TIPS
Or
are
equivalent.
equivalent, yeah.
okay.
And
What was the other one?
Additional
Insurance?
insurance.
Insurance. Additional insurance or just insurance?
Or
Where-
proof of insurance.
Proof of insurance. Okay.
So again, state law doesn't require this. It's solely a local,
Mm-hmm.
But it's not
Licensing.
illegal for us to require
it's
it.
not illegal.
No.
You can pretty much,
Do whatever we want.
that's like a government.
This is so great.
You
All
can do
right, so
anything.
Where is my crown?
can I just run through, could I run through what I think are the changes that we're gonna make tonight to this in, a motion subject to the following changes I'll be asking for. So on the front page, it will say number of attendees instead of people.
Participants or attendees.
Participants or attendees.
Can I make an argument for people?
Yeah, just not here.
I mean, I think of people, like, if it's attendees, you're not gonna include, you're just including the people that are paying the money to go to this event. You're not including staff, I'd almost rather know that there are 200 people there and 30 of them, I don't know.
Well, that should,
Am I
you
just
should be, have the
parsing
intent,
words?
you should
Well,
have the attendees, yeah,
I
I
think
think
it-
that's needed.
I think participants would cover staff.
No,
Oh?
attendees,
My concern
include
with
all
people
types.
is
That's
that
a generic word.
I haven't seen it in other forms. I understand
Okay.
you've copied it from somewhere, but that you often can have events that are taking place in a larger context. So who do you count? If you're having an event at a ball field and there's also a ball game going on, do you count thousands of people because they're all at the same
That's a
facility?
good point.
Or are you counting the people who are gathered
Participating
around
in
a
the thing, okay.
particular?
Alright, so let's, so we'll change that to attendees. I'm gonna jump down to the bottom where it gives examples under, do I need a special liquor license, one-day liquor license? We're gonna add a line that's flush left that says the above is not intended to be all-inclusive. And then up under for a one-day special event liquor license, it'll say the board of selectmen may issue special licenses, blah, 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 blah. And then the final sentence to be added is, the board at its discretion may require other conditions, including but not limited to requiring a tips or equivalent certified server, proof of insurance as conditions of the permit. Sound right?
As additional conditions.
Right.
As additional conditions of permit.
Is that tips tree?
Tips certified, I think. I think it's, I will do certified in lowercase. So, it's not, okay.
Well, then I would argue tips certified or equivalent.
Right.
Good, yep. Okay, so with those edits, is there a motion to approve the one-day liquor license?
Is it still going to be getting further review from council?
Mm-hmm.
And,
Yeah.
post fact,
Mm-hmm.
is the intent to still have council in the,
Sure, if you wanna
And-
take a formal crack at it, and we can run it by ABCC. I believe they have, but
I'm not trying to hold
No,
this
no, no.
back, I'd love to have a review from that and from the enforcement agency. So,
I agree, Steve.
the enforcement agency being ABCC.
no, the enforcement agency being, well, ABCC is fine, yes.
Yeah.
Subject to a sign off from town council and the ABCC.
Comments, because that we can then revise.
Yeah.
So this is gonna come back to us then, to look at.
So do you wanna just
No,
postpone it?
my point here is that let's give ourselves the flexibility to revise it if clearly we're adopting something that is, is not legal. But it doesn't sound, at least upon initial review and reading, that we have that issue. The commentary I'm looking at, or I'm asking for, is for the thought process that Paul may give it, as well as ABCC may give it, in which we're missing something and we may wanna add it in,
Okay.
okay? That's all. So,
Okay.
I am, from that perspective.
Why don't you make the motion?
Yeah.
Move that, we vote, for the adoption of the Town of Cohasset application for special one-day liquor license, pending final review by town council at ABCC.
Second.
Subject to the changes made,
As amended or?
as amended.
As amended.
Moved,
Tracy's
Move-
really good at this.
move
She's
that we adopt
got our James
the
Joyce
Town of
thing right down
Cohasset
into it.
application for special one-day liquor license as amended, pending final approval by town council and the ABCC.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Yay! Okay. OPEB.
Okay.
Man, it feel like Groundhog Day here.
I know. Not even reveal. So, thank you, Tim, if you would just introduce yourself.
Timothy Davis, 257 Atlantic Avenue.
Tim is the chair of the OPEB committee and has a presentation for us.
You're gonna put it up there?
I'm gonna try. The OPEB, for those of you at home.
I like that.
I can't believe I didn't bring my OPEB folder. Who don't, whoa,
biology
I know,
class.
wow, they're like jellyfish.
Do you have an
Those are
extra hard
stingers.
copy?
Most of it is
If it doesn't come up there, it's just something I can.
So for those of you at home who, haven't, who haven't been as aware of this issue as we are, OPEB is other post-employment benefits, and it's a liability that, Tim will give us some information on, and, something we've been working on diligently, especially the, OPEB committee for well over a year and a half.
Yes. Thank you, Diane. And while we're trying to get the
Yeah, just
slide deck on the top, I will begin by just reiterating that OPEB really is medical insurance for the town of Cohasset retirees. That's really what OPEB is, other post-employment benefits. It's really the insurance, medical insurance for retirees. What we're going to address this evening are, first of all, a little bit about the committee makeup of OPEB. We're going to review the OPEB issue and why it is a problem to the town. And then we'll talk about the initial recommendations and next steps. The OPEB committee, which as Diane mentioned, has been in existence for over a year and a half, is made up of three people: Carl Forsyth, who could not be here this evening, Jason Souls, who is here, and myself. Initially, John Chapman was also on the board and left to join another board, the Capital Advisory. We also are ably assisted by a number of folks from other committees on the town, and I might also mention we've had a lot of help from the town finance department and also from the town administrator of Hingham, among others. But many people have been involved in this and discussing it and looking to find a solution to the problem. The problem that we have in Cohasset is that it has a $40 million unfunded OPEB liability. And that unfunded liability is growing at approximately $2 million a year. This problem began many years ago when the town, with the current information at that time, through contract and policy, agreed to provide medical insurance to its employees and its retirees. Over time, that policy was not adjusted in the face of rapidly increasing costs and was exacerbated by the state providing an unfunded mandate to increase the contribution of the town. And it's resulted in not only the costs of medical insurance increasing dramatically for the town, but also the $40 million unfunded liability that we have today. This problem impacts all of us, both employees and the taxpayers and citizens of the Cohasset. Today, the medical insurance accounts for approximately 10% of the town budget. Oh, great, here we are. So
Sorry
can you go
about
to slide 4?
Yep.
About 10% of the town budget. And that insurance is expected to grow between 5 and 8% a year, and there are some estimates that it may be higher than that. While town revenues can only grow at 2.5 to 3% a year. So you can see that this is a problem that is growing every year and contributes to $2 million in additional unfunded liability a year.
If this continues, the town will be faced with having to reduce employees, cut services, or make other painful adjustments to the budget. So the options, next slide. First of all, we could do nothing and let this continue on. Secondly, we could reform the benefits to sustainable levels for both employees and retirees. Third, we could increase OPEB trust fund balances, which would reduce the unfunded portion of that liability. Or we could do a combination of 2 and 3. Slide 6. The do-nothing approach, I think none of us feel is appropriate. It would result in reducing spending in other budget areas within the town, or increase revenue with operational tax overrides. Total liability has increased to $40 million today, and it will continue to increase to about $181 million in 2043. The percentage of revenue available for other operations in the town would go from 91% today, or 90% today, to about 78% in 2043, resulting in a 13% reduction in the town budget for schools, municipal services, etc. There's also a risk of a bond rating downgrade, which would have a further negative economic impact on the town. Slide 7 shows that what happens with this scenario by graphically looking at it from 2015 to 2035, where you can see that the OPEB accrued actuarial liability far outstrips the projected town revenue over time. Slide 8 shows this in another graphic form, and the very top line is the total revenue of the town, 100% of the town, and the darker area below is what's available for all other operations of the town. And as you can see, that reduces from 90% today to about 78% in 2043. So the recommended approach that we have come up with, in conjunction with advice and counsel from many people in the town and on different boards, is to, number one, work with the school committee and the Board of Selectmen to develop potential solutions. And we have done that over the course of the last year. Tonight, we are going to present recommendations to the Board of Selectmen and the town manager for moving ahead to solve this problem. In April, we'll seek town support at town meeting, and then by June, we hope to implement a number of these recommendations. The initial recommendations are, number one, to migrate all employees currently in the Maya plans, the existing insurance plans, to new insurance plans, recommended plans. This has already been done and has had a significant positive impact on the town by reducing the insurance premiums. That reduction and that benefit immediately went into the OPEB trust fund at the special town meeting in 2014. So we're beginning to build the trust fund already to address the unfunded liability of OPEB. Number two, the recommendation is to migrate all retired teachers from the GIC plan they are currently on to the Maya plan that everyone else in town is on. This can be done by the Board of Selectmen voting to rescind Section 11E of Chapter 2B. This is within the purview of the Board of Selectmen. This will result, we believe, in the retirees having a better plan that is less expensive to the town. The other thing that this allows the town to do by moving from GIC to Maya, and I see that's still misspelled there. We'll catch that one, Sharon. The town will then have the ability to change the contribution split. Number three, analyze and recommend mitigation as appropriate. There are many cohort employee groups in the town who will be impacted by these changes. And the intent, both of the OPEB board and the other boards that have been involved in this, is to mitigate that economic impact where appropriate, while still accomplishing the goal of solving the problem. 4, we recommend that we dedicate all savings to the OPEB trust fund, which means that any reduction in cost that accrues to the town go directly to the OPEB trust fund to offset the OPEB liability. The next steps, number 1, to migrate all town employees to a 50-50 contribution. Number 2, to create a mitigation policy where appropriate. Number 3, to direct all cost reductions to the OPEB trust fund. And number 4, implement a town policy to fully fund the OPEB trust fund over time through committed contributions in each annual budget. The resolution of this would be as follows. Today, as we've discussed, the town is obligated to pay $40 million for future medical insurance for all town employees, current and future. $40 million the town does not have. Number 2, if we implement the plan as proposed, the town will decrease that unfunded obligation over time. The plan results in decreasing the unfunded OPEB liability to 0 over 30 years. This will result in a sound and sustainable medical insurance plan for town employees, as well as a fiscally stable town budget. Thank you.
Terrific, thank you. I just want to clarify the slides 10 and 11. So initial recommendations are things, conversations that have been either, well, in one case, in the case of migrating all the employees currently in Maya plan to a new Maya plan, we've done that. The others are things that have been in discussion over the past couple of months. The next steps are conversations that have really yet to be had, at least
These are
from the leadership in
recommendations,
town. And that's-
recommendations from OPEB to the Board of Selectmen.
It's someplace we'll go
Yeah.
next.
Ultimately, though, the purpose of this, Tim, is to give us the ability to maintain the promise that was made some time ago.
Yeah.
Right? And if I'm reading this correctly, if we do nothing, we will not be able to maintain the promise without cutting the very services that we have in town.
Exactly.
Okay? All right.
Do any members have any
On the next steps,
comments?
you mentioned the migrate town employees to a 50-50 contribution.
Yeah.
Are you addressing, I don't see an addressment of retirees in the next step.
Well, they would all go to 50-50, but then the mitigation plan would address what we've discussed about those retirees that we feel should not go to 50-50 themselves. But the plan itself would be a 50-50 plan.
So
the
this year
mitigation
would be to migrate all town employees and retirees
Yes.
then, because retirees are not town employees, right?
No, this is affecting town retirees.
Retirees.
Retirees from the town.
Tonight on the initial recommendations, these are things that we'll be discussing in the future.
Yeah, I think it's also possibly
Yeah, this should say,
Yes.
yeah, right. So you're talking about tonight, we're talking about initial recommendations.
Right.
Right.
So tonight we're talking about the idea of moving the retired teachers from the GIC plan to the Maya plans, and
Yeah.
there's a very specific process for that, which after the board has a chance to make comments, I do have motions drafted by council to go forward in beginning that conversation publicly. Does anybody have anything that they wanna chime in on?
It's, the only comment that I have is, first of all, thank you for, what is it, been 18 months worth of work.
Thank you.
And it's not just work, it's analysis, brain power, gauging resources from a variety of areas, because in fact, this is not, anybody who's heard this commentary over the course of the last 18 months recognizes that we're not alone. This is common throughout the state of Massachusetts. In our case, we are taking positive, though very modest steps at the moment, and this is the recommendations that the OPEB committee has put forward tonight is to go past that modest stage and start to really embrace the problem and try and tackle it within a forecasted time period. The problem is not a matter of cost, it's a matter of promise, all right? And I think that's the part that has to be made ultimately clear. We have a promise that is larger than our budget, and we have no way of making that promise work unless we take steps today, and some of them are very much within our grasp. It's time that we did move down that road. I thank you for the in-depth analysis, each and every one of you. That gives us the capability of making some, what I think are fairly clear decisions, so.
I just wanna also, if I may, just acknowledge Brian Host, who has worked, who's not on a committee, but has worked,
Capital budget.
He's
he's on,
capital
he's
budget.
a capital budget liaison, he's not on the OPEB committee, I'm sorry.
Right.
But has worked really diligently on, putting together numbers and making us feel very comfortable with, how we're gonna be able to move forward and in a very positive way that is not gonna be very impactful for individuals, but will be very impactful for the town. So having said that, I am asking for a motion that the board, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 11E, authorize the town manager, with assistance from Labor Council and on the board's behalf, to notify the Group Insurance Commission of the board's intent to submit the question of whether to terminate the town's acceptance of MGL 32B, Section 11E, and to move affected retired teachers to town-sponsored health insurance plans through Maya to a vote of the board, and a second motion for that the board, pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 11E, authorize the town manager, with assistance from Labor Council and on the board's behalf, to notify all active and effective retired teachers of the Cohasset Public Schools that the Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on February 24th, 2015, for the purposes of informing the affected retired teachers and the public about the board's anticipated vote to terminate the town's acceptance of MGL Chapter 32B, Section 11E, and to move affected retired teachers to town-sponsored health insurance plans through Maya, and to notify the affected retired teachers that at this public hearing, an advisory vote of the affected retired teachers shall be taken prior to any vote of the board. So, would somebody like to move that?
I would move it. Do you want me to reread that too? Read it again? Should I read it again by
Well, I'd like them to be voted separately.
Separately,
You kinda
that's
made
what I
it
was
into
Okay, so
one
let me,
long
sorry.
motion.
Yeah,
Sorry. So
I
the first
would read it.
motion, I'll redo it. The first motion is to, that the board, pursuant to MGL Chapter 32B, Section 11E, authorize the town manager, with assistance from Labor Council and on the board's behalf, to notify the Group Insurance Commission of the board's intent to submit the question of whether to terminate the town's acceptance of MGL Chapter 32B, Section 11E, and to move affected retired teachers to town-sponsored health insurance plans through Maya to a vote of the board. Is there a motion?
I will give a motion, but should I reiterate that motion?
Or you can say,
So
I
moved.
so move.
I so move, yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion
So
on
just to
this?
synopsize, what we're essentially doing with this motion is we're notifying the GIC that we have, that we're thinking of moving all the retired teachers from Maya to
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
from GIC to Maya.
Right.
And the process, we're
Submit
starting to go
that
down
question
that
for a
road.
board.
Yeah.
So
Correct.
that's what this
Correct.
motion is essentially.
Yeah, thank you. Yep. Okay, any other comments on the board? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Madam Chairman, point of order.
I'm sorry?
Madam Chairman, point of order. Would recommend a roll call vote.
Thank you. Okay. we're gonna do,
Why do you wanna do that?
town council,
Town council.
can you advise? How do I undo that if I?
He's in Candy Crush.
Do we
Hold
have
on.
to have a roll call? I don't see why we have to have a roll call.
I don't see a requirement here for a roll call vote, but given the fact that it's raised,
It
Can't
doesn't
hurt.
hurt to do it.
Do I need to ask
Do
for a
it
motion?
again?
no, don't read the motion again. It's
I won't do that.
I'll say so moved.
And that's coming from a lawyer.
Well, I'm afraid if it's read differently, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
we're,
yeah,
we got a
Okay,
message
so
to
the
what was
motion,
actually
it
voted.
has been moved and seconded
right,
again,
A
Yeah.
revote. That's the revote.
okay, all right.
Do
and
we
we're
have to
gonna-
vote to revote?
no.
No. Again, I don't see a requirement here in the stuff that Labor Council sent me, but
Dr. Schubert, I'll see you after class.
We'll see you after class.
I'd like to take a roll call vote on this motion. Kevin?
Would you read it? No.
No.
Kevin McCarthy, aye.
Steve Gomer, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Karen Quigley, aye.
Martha, yes to the aye.
Okay. Now, we're gonna do this one right, okay? I'm asking for a motion that the board pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 11E, authorize the town manager, with assistance from Labor Council and on the board's behalf, to notify all active and affected retired teachers of the Cohasset Public Schools that the Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on February 24th, 2015 for the purposes of informing the affected retired teachers and the public about the board's anticipated vote to terminate the town's acceptance of MGL Chapter 32B, Section 11E, and to move affected retired teachers to town-sponsored health insurance plans through Maya, and to notify the affected retired teachers that at this public hearing, an advisory vote of the affected retired teachers shall be taken prior to any vote of the board. Is there a motion?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Okay, I'm gonna go roll call vote. Martha?
Martha, yes to be aye.
Karen Quigley, aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Steve Gomer, aye.
Kevin McCarthy, aye.
Okay, it passes 5-0. Okay, so, this has triggered, most importantly, the reaching out to the affected individuals, notification of the hearing on February 24th, and we will have some processes in place for additional information gathering and some workshops. Anything else? Anybody else wants to add? Chris? Anybody?
I just wanna again thank the OPEB committee for
Yes,
all their work.
I
And
really do.
I've had some very long conversations with Brian. I've talked about actuarial studies and analysis more than I could ever have imagined. And very productive. But there's a lot of work to be had. We're doing this very cooperatively. I wanna reiterate how well and successfully the work was done with the town retirees. We're gonna continue to be as open and transparent and give as much information as we can. And we're available to work with the school committee as the ball goes into their court, to be as productive and open and cooperative as we possibly can be on this. So this is an effort that the town needs to make, that it's doing the right way. It's a way to, as people have reiterated, to protect and preserve benefits that have been promised. That's what this is about. It's not about taking anything back, it's about making sure that we can continue to do it into the future. So.
Great, thank you all, and thank you for
Thank you,
taking, and to Brian and Tim for taking what can be very complicated minutia and really making it understandable and actually interesting. So I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Don't be a stranger
Thank
now.
you very much.
Thank you.
Well, there's still next steps that, they're not off the hook. No. Okay, take a deep breath. Next on our agenda is to formally call annual town meeting and, review a couple documents that, we were given at the beginning of the meeting. The first document is a, schedule, to get us to annual town meeting.
Would you like me to just to give a?
Yes, please, I was.
And I please
Turn it over
forgive
to
me.
you.
I'm losing my voice, so I apologize. So I'll talk as loud as I can. I sound much worse than I So, I'm getting choked up about the intensity of the meetings.
Vitamin C.
Upon the board's official calling of the annual town meeting tonight, tomorrow, I will be posting on the website a calendar of key dates and deadlines, and a warrant notice of intent, something we discussed in December. This will also, give to the Mariner, it'll put on, and it'll be available to anyone who comes in the building, and it will allow anyone who has a potential citizen petition article to submit this informative piece so we can help review that with the help of town council. The goal here would be that they would submit this by the end of January, and then we probably pick, you're normally available, Paul, the first Tuesday of the month. So we use the February 3rd date, if you're already gonna be here, as a potential date for anyone to be able to come in and talk to Paul before the meeting, because he'd already be here anyway. So that would be the, so they can, so if there's any questions, he might be able to answer stuff and maybe we'll resolve questions before the process is even, has gone to the deadline. At the same time, I'm gonna be doing a slightly modified version of this internally, and ask all town departments, boards, and commissions to submit any proposed, just again, any notice of intent to us on the same deadline. So they'll have a couple of weeks to get it back to us. So we have an idea by the end of the month, roughly where we're looking at. Again, not locked in stone, but a first cut of what the warrant will look like. And then we'll continue to follow the schedule as it's proposed here, and then I'll post more things on the web as we go. So that people will be able to follow along, and we'll put more things up on the web. There'll be, more notices, more information as we have we actually have a separate budget process page. I posted all of the fiscal forecasting PowerPoints are already up there. Anyone wants to look at them. As more information comes due, we're hoping to get the visual budget piece up in the next couple of weeks too, so that'll be part of this conversation. And as more information becomes available, it'll be out there and available up on the web. And I think we can even use I don't think anybody wants to hear a discussion about town meeting necessarily on the web, on the TV channel, but we could do that. We're also working on this town meeting manual. The clerk's done some nice work on this, and I wanna sit down with her and get that up and posted so people can, educate themselves. There are already links available, excuse me, the Secretary of State's website, which is information on what a town meeting is all about. But we wanna put our own Cohasset town meeting guide up there, so people can just, can learn a little bit more about what it is and what it's all about.
Do you anticipate that we could have a draft of that by our January 20th
The manual?
meeting? Yeah.
Yeah, Carol and I have to sit down and talk, and we literally just back in the last 2 days, so she and I haven't had a chance to do that, but we will before the end of the week. So.
If the,
Go ahead.
the expense would allow it, it wasn't unduly burdensome. It seemed to be kinda nice that when we send the warrant out, if we could send the manual with the warrant.
No.
I think it would just be killing too many trees.
Yeah.
But, one of the things that the warrant, if there's availability of space, there is a kind of a procedural, piece that always goes in there, so, if we had a couple, we could almost do a little Cliff Notes version of the
You can
manual.
always direct people to the.
Yeah, we'll make it download, put it in a PDF format, so you can download it, print it yourself. There's been some talk about having a pre-town meeting session anyway. We can have an open meeting and talk about what town meeting's about for anyone who might not know. We have a lot of opportunities to do that if the board is interested in doing those kinds of things.
I'll tell you, I knew somebody once, this is just a little aside, who wrote operettas, and he did one on town meeting, and it was absolutely brilliantly written, scored. Anyway, an operetta of town meeting, and, the people. And
Well, I'm trying to get my voice deeper so I can be the voice.
Well, it reminds me, years ago, we had town meeting, we had a play on the Dramatico
Same
had
thing,
it years ago.
See?
And that was very good, they was singing and everything. We should bring that up again.
I don't think Selectmen Gomer likes that idea.
So I think
Anyway,
you just need to formally
That's my fault.
call the meeting and open the warrant.
Okay.
So, the only thing I don't see noted in here is, review by town council and the bylaw committee.
The town council review is gonna be an ongoing thing. And again, this is more for public more than internal, so we're gonna continue to do that. Paul will get everything as we get it, so, and we'll,
So we do anticipate some,
bylaw review.
some bylaw
yeah, remember the
changes.
bylaw review committee only looks at certain bylaw changes, not zoning, not personnel.
Yeah,
So if there are any, they'll most certainly get them.
Right, but
And we'll
they,
know far enough in advance. The goal here is,
well, they have, is-
The bylaw committee should be called, should be able to look at the warrant 10 days before it's printed.
10 days before, so I know it's in the bylaw, it's stated in the bylaw.
That's my recollection.
well, I think we'll be okay. I mean, having this as detailed as this, I think will get us where we wanna be.
March 31st.
I was just gonna, we could just add March 31st.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Any pertinent bylaw will be submitted to the bylaw committee, which town council, I believe, is.
And exactly as Chris Senior has stated, it's for bylaw changes,
Yes.
not
Yeah.
zoning, not
Yep.
whatever.
Right. But I do remain concerned about town council review, being done well enough in advance, so.
The goal is to do it, the earlier the things come in, and again, the goal with this, first time out of the box, is to get some idea as early as possible. So, hey, wait a second, that may require a little bit more of this or that, and Paul, with his extensive experience, having done, I don't know how many town meetings you've done in your life, and how many articles you've looked at.
1,184 town meetings.
And counting.
Well, there you go.
Counting.
So
85, 1,185.
85 to come, and well,
There you
in
go.
Sherburne, and one of the things that I just don't wanna lose sight of, and it's like we talked about with the events, we already know that there's 5 or 6 floating around from alternative energy. And, I wanna make sure that we get
Well, they're gonna go to every board and commission over the next couple of days.
that they know that, even though we already know about it, but some of those,
I can't
the
imagine
sooner they
anybody
get-
that will be more prompt and thorough
I
than the alternative energy.
completely agree,
Yeah.
but I just wanna make sure that we get, because we do know those, and they've been
And
drafted.
And by the way, to Karen's point, their drafts are already at town councils, I already.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, we
And
have
there's-
a bunch of articles.
Yeah.
The articles that are
Where you headed?
more, have more in them.
Working on them.
And
More
Involved.
robust.
And the articles
Like
for
the
the
zoning and everything, we need-
historic commission, because they want a committee for the 250th.
So pretty much by the end of the month, we'll know
Well, our first cut, at what's coming.
Yeah.
pretty much what's coming. Obviously, citizens petitions, we can't hold their feet to them. We still have to, put them in the
voluntary.
warrant as long as they meet the deadline of February 17th, which is a hard deadline.
February 17th, but this is an opportunity for the first time for citizens to talk to town council and vet some ideas.
That's right.
I think that's
in advance,
fabulous.
so.
Yep, I think that's terrific.
And again, we'll make sure, I'm sure that Aaron will put a nice big story there. And we'll put the little form, you can print the form if you like, all put on the web.
Okay, so, at this point, unless there's any other comments, I think we'll just take a vote to open the warrant, call annual town meeting for May 2nd, 2015 at 10 a.m. Sullivan Gymnasium at Cohasset Middle High School.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Alrighty, we're on. The train is
What
a-rolling.
What are you going to have, the vote, the day of
So do we
voting?
need to take a separate,
You should
Vote to
vote the
open the
day
warrant.
to vote.
The election day,
Shouldn't
you want to set the date for election? Let's get-
Yeah, elections.
Yeah,
well,
didn't we,
before we move on to
Oh,
elections,
I
do we need to open the warrant?
didn't we just do that in
We
that
just
warrant?
did it.
We set the date.
And
We just
open
opened
the
it.
warrant.
I thought her motion was to set the date and to open the
Yes.
Oh,
warrant.
did I miss that? I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah.
It was to open the warrant.
Okay, pardon me, my mistake.
Okay, so the second piece of this is typically the election date,
May 9th.
which is May 9th. And did we already vote that? I think we did in the September.
I think we did,
Okay.
I think we did
So,
that.
if we could just add that to this calendar,
Okay.
just
Yep.
because people see them in tandem.
Yep.
And they think of them, they think of one, they think of the other.
Well, the
So it
election
is
day is the
technically-
extension of town meeting anyway.
Exactly.
isn't it?
Right,
Yeah.
correct.
Town meeting doesn't end till the election.
Yeah, the election is the extension of town meeting.
Is the end of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Imagine tomfoolery, we could pull off, we could get together a quorum.
Every night. Okay, so we will move on to the town manager update.
I will be very brief. Next Tuesday, I have confirmed the presence of Jim Powers, the town auditor. He will be here. You all got the CAFR? He'll be here to talk about the CAFR and answer any questions, talk about where we are fiscally, and we'll have I hope to have the final management letter out to you by the end of the week. We've been going back and forth. He got to us fairly late, we were going back and forth. Which is good. I mean, there's most certainly things that are still out there, but we've made a lot of progress on a lot of them, so, and we'll have an opportunity to have that conversation.
So I didn't spend time, I admit it, on looking at the CAFR yet, but the management letter is not there yet.
No, management's not
it's
part
not
of the CAFR.
there, no.
So will the management letter, I mean, I'd just like to clarify, when you said there are things we're making progress on, will the management letter reflect things that may have been corrected already?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So-
What it does, it includes all things from the prior year, and then it tells you where you are.
That's right.
Right,
And then includes anything new from the current
Right.
year.
That's right.
but I just wanted to make sure where you had said we're working on it, that the management letter would reflect.
Well, part of it is that they didn't really interact with us on this until fairly recently, in the last couple of weeks, so, which is hard. I mean, Jim was on vacation, and so, they had a draft which they hadn't bounced off us, and we're like, well, wait a second, that's right, that's wrong, so they've cleaned it up, so it's actually reflecting reality, but it also is just, it's up to date, it's now ready, it will be ready by
It's the management letter. I have read the whole thing.
The CAFR? Well,
Yeah.
you're better than I am, because I
Yeah,
haven't.
well, it's very interesting, and it has also a lot of other data that we know, too. And I've found a few little things in your,
My letter?
it's just technicality, that's all. Maybe it was, when you were typing it went wrong or something. Nothing.
Blame the typewriter.
Yeah, blame the typewriter.
Like a keyboardist.
So we'll,
People still use typewriters?
You have one right back there?
No.
did I say that?
You said typewriter, so I agree
And,
with you. I mean,
Showing my age.
so he'll be here next week.
And
We'll
we
also
will,
have.
we will have the management letter before they
In our
come.
packets.
That's the expectation.
No, we will have the management letter before they
Yes.
come,
That's the expectation.
because
I'm waiting for
we
them to get it.
can't have a meaningful discussion
I'm
if we
waiting
haven't
for
had a
him to get us.
chance.
I expect to have it in the next couple days, so you'll have it for the weekend.
Thank you.
So,
But if we don't, that discussion will occur at the next meeting, I take it? Is that what
We
Karen
have to have the
I-
management
Well, I'm
letter for
just-
our packets.
yeah, I've asked.
We're gonna have it before then.
We had a conference call with him yesterday. I expect that we'll have it the next day or so.
Great, thank you.
And I'll make sure that your advisory committee gets it too, obviously.
I would appreciate that,
Yeah.
as well as the CAFR.
Careful, you haven't got that?
Well, there's no printed copies. I only have electronic ones, but I can get you an
That's all I
electronic
want is
copy. Can we
electronic. I don't
tomorrow
want-
just send it
I
to
don't
him?
want a book, I just want the electronic.
Okay, all right, we have the electronics, and we'll post that up on the web too, so we haven't done that yet. There was a little glitch at the end, there's a couple of blank pages that weren't supposed to be there, we have to clean
Yeah.
that, so. So that's done, and that's where we are right now, so that we have a new year, so very exciting. You have any questions of me while we're here?
Did we ever get $1,000 for the minor thing, from the movie company? Did they send us the town, did we get that money?
They
They
were
wanted
sending
to give
it,
us $1,000 as a donation to the town.
no, they were,
Not to the
it
town.
wasn't to the town, it was to a
Conservation trust.
conservation group in town.
No land.
Did that happen?
I don't know for sure, I know that I had heard discussions about it, but I can.
We gotta make sure, because they offered to give it. and-
Right.
Well, I think both the organizations in town are probably looking for it.
Yeah, well, it'd be kinda nice to know where it ended up, yeah.
Yep, that's a fair question.
Okay, so, anything else, Chris?
Nope.
Okay, otherwise, we are gonna go into, go ahead, Karen.
I'm sorry, I just had one stupid little thing. I was looking at the building, permit reports, the graphs that come through, and I just thought it would be helpful, at least to me, maybe not to other members, if we could add on a column, not just for the permits, but on the graphs that we get from you guys, that's a year-to-year summary comparison. So, I mean, yes, we can look at it, we can see that, you know, the 2015 numbers are hopefully always bigger than the 2014 numbers. But if there was a column there that was just like year-to-date or something,
Don't we have that on there?
I don't think
It
so.
says it says,
That's month, it's.
it's month to
By
month,
month.
but then.
By
It's from year, it's comparing 2 years, month.
Oh.
There is no summary total. The building department actually prepares this, I can ask.
Okay, it's not, I mean, if it's a big deal, but it's just something that would help me.
Yeah, or just give us a spreadsheet.
To see what the accumulation is.
Yeah, it comes up as spreadsheet.
Yeah, is that more,
Well,
Yeah, hard.
you can, but maybe some of the rest of us.
No, my point, you made, your point's very, very well taken. You don't have you don't have
you
a
gotta,
macro.
you gotta
view
add
of it.
colors,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
It doesn't, you can't look at this off the top of your head. I can look at it and say, I think that 13 and 14 are about equal, but there is no way to tell that. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So at this time, we're gonna conclude our public session. We're gonna enter into executive session, and I'll read the motion in a minute. We're gonna return to open session strictly for adjourning. We're reviewing some executive session minutes this evening. Peter, did you have one comment?
One quick one, please. Peter Pescatore, Advisory Committee. As the warrant articles come in, please get them in draft form so that I can get the gist of what people are trying to do out to my committee. We're gonna be pretty compressed, the schedule is pretty aggressive, and I really would help the process if you get, even if they're in draft form, if you get them to us, so I can get the committee informed and,
Sure, I'll share these with you, just like.
yeah, thank you, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Okay. So I am going to, it's gonna be complicated.
A long motion.
No, yeah, I'm gonna ask for, a motion that the Board of Selectmen enter into executive session, under exceptions 2, 3, and 6 on the following items. We will review executive session minutes from the following meetings: August 26, 2014, exception 2 and 3. Hang on. Which is, conducting strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel pursuant to Section 21A2 of Chapter 30A, and also, under Section 21A, Exception 3, which is for, should've gotten this, sorry. There's three is the union personnel, collective bargaining. Okay, thank you, sorry. And to, under exceptions 2 and 3, to review the September 2nd, minutes of the Board of Selectmen, which was a discussion of litigation and collective bargaining regarding various new litigation matters and health insurance. To review under exception 2, the September 10th executive session minutes, which was an update on current litigation matters. Under exceptions 2 and 3, to review the minutes from the executive session held on September 23rd, which was a joint meeting with the school committee regarding health insurance benefits for union, non-union personnel. To review the minutes under exception 6 for the executive session on September 29th, which was regard to property and lease thereof of 91 Sawyer Street. To review the minutes from October 7th, 2014, under exception 6, the lease of property for 91 Sawyer Street. October 16th, 2014, under exceptions 2 and 3, it was a joint meeting with the school committee regarding health insurance for union and non-union personnel. October 21st, 2014, executive session under exception 6, lease of property at 91 Sawyer Street, and review the executive session minutes from November 5th, under exception 6, the lease of property at 91 Sawyer Street. Would somebody like to move that motion? And a second?
Second.
And we need a roll call vote for entering into executive session. Kevin?
Kevin McCarthy, aye.
Steve Gomer's aye.
Diane Kennedy, aye.
Karen Quigley, aye.
Martha Gibson, aye.
Having passed by a vote to 5-0, the open session is now closed. We will reconvene only for adjourning. We are now in executive session.